Hey, today's program is sponsored by SunsetLakeSebede.com. Use the coupon code LeftIsBest and get 20% off. However, they're having a special sale for the next 3 days. Don't let the winter weather dry out your skin like it does me.
Talk about the eczema.
Yeah, well, I got eczema. Today through the end of day Sunday, all of Sunset Lake Sebede's standalone topical products are buy one, get one free. So now is the time to stock up on their lotions, their salves. This is the Recovery Body Lotion Menthol. I use this for my calves when they start to get itchy. Look, use code BOGOFEB. That is BOGO FEB, buy one, get one, FEB. At checkout, you'll see the website for terms and conditions and restrictions, but you can trust Sunset Lake Sebede. All of its products are third-party tested. They got great tinctures. They got great smokables. They got great fudge and coffee and salves and lotions, like I say, with Sebede. Check them out. They're a great company, great movement partners. They've donated thousands of dollars to strike funds and refugee relief and food pantries and carceral reform, on and on and on. Great company, great product. SunsetLakeSebede.com. The sale lasts until Sunday night. All of Sunset Lake's Sebede's standalone topical products, buy one, get one free. Use the coupon code BOGOFEB, one word, at checkout. We'll put that link in the podcast and YouTube description. And now, time for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day, Thursday, Casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, February 2nd, 2024. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Jeet Heer, Nation writer. Also on the program today, economy adds 350,000 jobs in January. Wage growth picks up. Also, new poll, half of U.S. adults now say Israel has gone too far in its assault on Gaza.
Keep talking about Palestine.
Biden visits a tense Michigan as his approval rating hits a whopping 41%.
Oh, that's incredible for him.
Meanwhile, the Biden administration begins its Medicare drug price cut negotiations. Having passed the House, the corporate tax cuts for child tax credit bill heads to the Senate. Meanwhile, Schumer plans a test vote on the probably doomed immigration deal and supplemental funding for mid-next week. Meanwhile, Republican fundraising in the toilet as Trump's PAC hoovers up all the dollars to fund his legal defense. New report. Some Eric Adams donors were secretly refunded by business interests.
Huh.
Former CIA employee Joshua Schultz sentenced to 40 years for his classified dump to WikiLeaks. And Massachusetts Governor Healy has set a 5 p.m. deadline today for court arbitration on that Newton school strike we spoke about earlier in the week. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us. It is Casual Friday.
Yes, it is.
Emma Vigland.
Hello.
Dressed casually and appropriately
Thank you.
casual.
Thank you.
For this Friday. Here we are, another Friday. It is now officially February, of course. And I mean, it was yesterday, technically, but
Yes.
it's the first Friday in February. And we are now 9 months out from the election. It is one of the weirdest feeling election years, particularly in February, that I can remember, because on some level we have sort of two incumbents running.
Yeah, did not have either competitive. There's no competitive primary on the Republican side.
No, and I've been doing this now as of really, in 2 months it'll be 20 years. This is, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the sixth election I'll have covered doing this. And never has it been this sort of like obvious, who both the nominees were going to be. And never has it been where both nominees are really the level of enthusiasm for both of them. And certainly, look, there is intense enthusiasm for Donald Trump. And there's some intense enthusiasm for Joe Biden. It's just not that widespread.
Right.
And
a lot of his anti-Trump enthusiasm, too.
Oh,
that's the
most
biggest
of
chunk.
it is
Yes.
the biggest chunk of both sets of voters, I think, is an antipathy to the other.
We're going to rank it like the number one block is anti-Trump enthusiasm, then Trump enthusiasm, then Biden enthusiasm.
Yeah, I mean, it's all very, very strange. But here we are. Meanwhile, we're obviously going to be talking to Jeet Heer about what's going on in terms of the continued assault on Gaza by the Israelis, and the potential for this war to become more regional, I guess is the way to say it, and other things. But in the meantime, we're just catching up on this. I think I mentioned this on Wednesday, that the DOJ is investigating Cori Bush. There was some, earlier in the week, there was an unnamed congressperson who had been subject to a subpoena. Now, Cori Bush went to the ethics committee with this and was cleared of any wrongdoing. Her husband is a military vet, has a security firm, or provides, personal security for people. She, and it was not her husband at the time, but she paid him a sum that was somewhere around, I guess, $40,000 for 9 months of security.
Considered market rate.
Considered market rate. House Ethics Committee allows for paying family members for security if they show, if there's some evidence that they have some qualifications to do so, and it's within a certain amount. And so she was cleared by the Ethics Committee. The Department of Justice is investigating her. I guess it's conceivable that there are some other issues that we're not aware of, but it also seems equally conceivable that she is one of the progressives, and that the DOJ is constantly looking for something to, and a Democrat, and the DOJ is constantly looking for something to make it look like in this election year that they are being even-handed. I mean, we saw how they sort of went in on
Hunter
Hunter
Biden.
Biden stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so
now the
understand that-
Republicans are going to just completely lay off and never call the Biden administration, the Biden crime family ever again.
Of course. Of course. And I should also say, you'll hear some right-wingers bringing up the idea that, how could Cori Bush want security when she wanted to defund the police? one of the reasons why people wanted to defund the police, aside from the fact that defunding the police doesn't mean completely abolishing the police,
The concept of security.
right? But rather refunding other areas and taking a lot more off their plate. But one of the reasons why some people don't, and particularly if you grew up in the situation that Cori Bush did, you would realize that police are not providing security for certain groups and certain parts of this. So aside from that right-wing talking point, here is a new one that I hadn't heard as to why I guess, I don't know, she should be investigated for needing security. This is a Republican lawmaker, Troy Nehls of Texas.
Support the police, but the idea to pay her thug money to try to help protect her, this and that, for what? Maybe if she wouldn't be so loud all the time, maybe she wouldn't be getting threats.
Are you saying she deserves to be threatened?
No, what I'm saying is that when you're out there talking the way she does, I'm surprised that people are probably pretty upset because she's pretty radical. She's pretty radical. And maybe she should tone it down a little bit.
He's asking for it.
I got news for you. That is exactly what he was saying, that she should be quiet and that she deserved the threats. And did she refer to her husband as a thug?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So people have been phrasing that as thug money, but I think like the space between those two words is much larger than people are making it out to be in print. I think he's actually just directly referring to her husband.
No,
Play it again.
Can we play it
Let's hear
again?
the-
Yeah. He says it at the beginning.
To support the police, but the idea to pay her thug
Pay her
money
thug.
to try to help protect her, this and that, for
Yeah, to pay her thug money.
Oh, yeah.
This is just like,
There's no, what is the sentence to pay her thug money?
yeah, that's not a
What-
sentence.
To
who's
pay
paying
her
this?
thug money.
Yeah, no, I understand, but I mean, other
No,
people
I
don't
know.
like to play it.
It's I mean, like that's not even a dog whistle. That's a bullhorn.
This is like this is like how the FBI investigated MLK. Like this is the exact same through line. Like this guy's like right out of time.
Well, and I'm going to be real here. Like, we've seen smear after smear of Ilhan Omar, by the way. The two leading members of Congress right now criticizing Biden's policy of supporting the Israeli government are Cori Bush and Rashida Tlaib. They were the first to introduce the resolutions condemning this, and they're working together on this front. I don't know where this kind of tip to the DOJ came from, but I don't think that it should be out of the question that it came from a right-wing group that is not supportive of her continued criticism of Israel. And like to your point, Sam, about this talking point about how this somehow makes her critical or hypocritical about defund the police. It's so absurd on its face because, one, members of Congress have personal security. That's just the nature of the profession, especially vocal female members of Congress who need it. Two, Cori Bush literally had friends that were killed by cops. Like, that was a big part of why she got into activism, why she ran for Congress twice, and why she was so vocal in the Black Lives Matter movement. She saw firsthand how people can be targeted and killed, and she has a reason to be fearful. And so maybe she wants someone closer to her that is going to, like, that she can trust necessarily.
Of course.
And three, this is the major
Hey,
point.
I mean, if I was her, it would not be irrational to say, like, there could be cops who could be actually
Exactly.
looking to
Exactly. And thirdly, this is the major point. If all police were behaving as personal security to the American population, I don't necessarily think that defund the police would be the call, because then they would be doing what they're supposedly supposed to do,
And this is-
protecting and serving. That's not how police functions, and that's why it's actually completely not hypocritical in the slightest, because personal security is protecting. What we have done to our police is we've heavily militarized them to the point where they are harassing and causing violence in communities.
I mean, aside from the fact that we just saw, what was it, in Arizona, or where was it, in New Mexico, where we just had some cops on somebody's porch, and they realized they're in the wrong house.
Yeah.
The guy comes out and they just start firing at him. But aside from that, this is not a controversial position.
No.
That the way that black people are policed in this country and low-income people are policed in this country is somehow different than it is for wealthier people. I mean, an MSNBC host wrote a whole book specifically with that theme of a colony within a nation. I mean, this is not a controversial position, but if you are a right winger, apparently from Texas, who thinks that her husband's a thug and that she shouldn't be so loud and maybe she wouldn't get death threats, that's where you're at.
Just to underline it, like anybody raising their hand and saying Cori Bush is being at all hypocritical is actually saying, I haven't understood the first thing about what anybody's saying about this defund the police thing, because the problem is that police departments are granted a monopoly over a thing like security, and American police departments and federal police departments or whatever should not be given that, given their track record. We can have alternative forms of security.
All right, we're going to be talking to Jeet Heer, national affairs correspondent at The Nation magazine, in just a moment to wrap up the week. But first, a couple of words from our sponsor. Did you notice that we've got big tech among their other sort of niceties that they're trying to push these days is that they are arguing that they are providing privacy, and to the extent that they're even like now asking whether you want to be tracked by cookies for that matter. It's only because it's coming out of Europe. We don't have that same type of stuff here in the United States. But big tech literally feeds on your information. You've heard this many, many times in the past. If you're not paying for something, then you are the product. The way that you can make sure that your information is kept private from tech, from your ISP, etc., is using ExpressVPN, which is the which I've been using for 3, 4, I don't know, many years now, because it's so easy. All you got to do, visit expressvpn.com/majority, and you can get an extra 3 months free on a 1-year package. When you use the ExpressVPN app on your computer or phone, you're hiding your unique IP address. Websites can't use that address to find out your real location or track what you're doing online. On top of that, ExpressVPN encrypts and reroutes 100% of your online activity. So your internet provider, your Wi-Fi admin, and hackers, they cannot see it. Plus, you can also make certain streaming outlets think that you're in a different country if you want to check out some programming that aren't available in this country.
Or maybe you're back home in trying to watch a Timberwolves game and it's blacked out or something.
There you go. And you don't want other streaming sites to know that happens with the Patriots game. Anyways, the best part, though, is how easy it is to use. It takes one click, protect all your devices. One ExpressVPN subscription covers up to 5 devices at the same time, so you can protect your entire family, too. That's why ExpressVPN is rated number 1 by CNET, Wired, TechRadar, and countless others. So today's the day. Get the VPN that I trust to protect my online privacy when Big Bag Tech is at the door. Visit expressvpn.com/majority. Get an extra 3 months free on a 1-year package. That's a 15-month year for you folks. That's expressvpn.com/majority, expressvpn.com/majority to learn more. Also, this episode brought to you in part by Zippix Nicotine Toothpicks. Zippix brings you a totally satisfying, convenient, and great tasting way to curb your nicotine cravings. I will tell you right now that the way I ultimately, back in the day, this is many years ago, I was a smoker. This is even before they had vapes.
I've never seen you smoke.
No. Well,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm validating you're back in the day.
Oh, no. I mean, this
Occasionally,
was
if you're feeling crazy,
way,
right?
way,
Well, yeah.
no, way back in the day.
Okay.
But it was toothpicks that really saved me. Now, you've all seen me using toothpicks, probably inappropriately on camera at times. But this is a great way to help you stop smoking. You put away your smoke, put away your vape. God knows what else is in the vape stuff too these days. You can get your nicotine fix anytime, anywhere without having to rely on smoking or vaping. Zippix toothpicks give you an easier, healthier, and more discreet way to get your fix. They're available in 6 flavors. They have options between 2 milligram and 3 milligram nicotine, so you can titrate yourself a little bit. Their Zippix are great for fights, sporting events, restaurants, literally everywhere else that smoking and vaping are banned. And frankly, even in places where they're not banned, it's a better option. They're also one of the most cost-effective nicotine products on the market. And for me, Zippix also offers caffeine and B12 infused toothpicks. So if you're not a nicotine user, you want a little caffeine, or a little B12, or you want to use toothpicks, or again, as a final step to get away from your nicotine habit, great way to do it. It's once you get into the habit with the toothpicks, it's easier to supplant the nicotine. Zippix has already helped tens of thousands of customers in leading a healthier lifestyle. If you currently smoke or vape, they can probably help you too. Make your lungs happy. Try Zippix nicotine toothpicks. Ditch the cigarettes, ditch the vape. Get 10% off your first order by using the code majority10 at checkout. Your lungs are going to be glad you did. Must be 21 or older to order. Warning, of course, nicotine is an addictive chemical. Zip more, smoke less with Zippix nicotine toothpicks. We will put the links to all our sponsors in the podcast and YouTube descriptions today. And we'll be right back in a moment. Jeet Heer, National Affairs Correspondent at The Nation. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigland on the Majority Report. Real pleasure to welcome back to the program Jeet Heer, National Affairs Correspondent at The Nation magazine. Jeet, thanks so much for joining us.
It's always a pleasure.
All right. I want to start with a piece that you wrote just 2 days ago. No, 4 days ago. 3 days ago. I don't know. Early in the week.
Time is relative. I think Einstein proved that.
Exactly. Depending on how fast anyone's out there is moving. It was sometime technically in this week. About Joe Biden. From the very beginning, there has been this sort of implication that Biden is talking to the Israelis behind the scenes. And he is, and it's all part of a grand scheme. And he's got to give them everything they need as a way of sort of like leveraging them behind the scenes. And part of this was, the big agenda was to minimize the sort of like this conflict of Israel essentially assaulting Gaza from becoming a regional war. And you write essentially, best case scenario, it's a total failure.
That's right. Yeah. And it's part of a broader spectrum of failure. I think one should never forget that just days before the October 7th, Jake Sullivan, a major crafter of American foreign policy in this administration, published an essay in Foreign Affairs where he said the Middle East is much calmer and more peaceful than it has been in many years. And with the implication that the Biden administration deserves credit for this. So, I mean, if that's your starting point, once October 7th happened, the whole argument that Biden has been presenting, and I think it's largely addressed to liberal audiences, is like, I know things look bad, but I'm quietly working behind the scenes and things could get much worse. Biden officials have even told the press, we're trying to avert World War III here. And as you said, the proof is in the pudding, what actually is happening. And, far from the wider war being averted, the United States has sent in forces, is bombing Yemen. America has troops all over the place in the Middle East, and they're increasingly sitting targets for these militias, some of whom are financed by Iran. But so I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much credit you can take for stopping a regional war when a regional war is starting.
Well, it seems like they're doing that in public to try to manage the narrative where we'll get 10 stories about atrocities happening in Gaza, and then we'll get one piece a day on Biden's perturbed with Netanyahu, Biden's unhappy behind the scenes. But this is
we've had frank private conversations with Netanyahu
he's losing patience or whatever, right?
But that's been since October 7th.
Yes.
Within days of the atrocity and the Israeli response, you had Biden White House leaks that we're talking to the Israelis, we're not happy with what they're doing. They're getting a stern talking to.
But it's not working is what I mean. Why I'm perplexed by it. One, we're still getting these reports in Axios, which, by the way, yesterday there was a report saying that they're still committed to this plan, this post-war plan that guy McGurk is putting forward, that initially reported by HuffPost, but the Axios report doesn't have any of this context in it that HuffPost did, which is that their normalization plan is that it's going to be Israel and Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia acting in the interests of normalizing between Israel and Saudi Arabia relations. So doing the Abraham Accords, which Trump did, which contributed to the October 7th attack because Palestinians were cut out of it and Hamas was furious about that. They think that will cool tensions and that Palestinians will feel represented by Saudi Arabia. And my question to this for you here, Jeet, is why do I, as somebody that reads the news, know that will never work, and these administration officials seem to be committed to this when all that the through line is just they're both Arabs, so of course Palestinians will trust Saudi Arabia, a close ally of the U.S., to represent their interests. It's baffling to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, part of it is that sort of obtuseness that goes back to the Jake Sullivan quote. They really thought that they had this, that things were going according to plan, and I think that their whole strategy is going to be to hope that at some point Israel stops the assault and everyone forgets what happens, and we can all go back to before October 7th and go back on the track of the Abraham Accords. First of all, okay, obviously Saudi Arabia is a dictatorship, but even in a dictatorship, you can't really defy public opinion completely. And we know from public opinion that 95% of people in Saudi Arabia are opposed to normalizing relations with Israel, because guess what? They actually see all the news that we do, and not only do they see that news, they see much more than we do, because they get Al Jazeera reporting of what's happening in Gaza. But beyond that, the idea that you get to peace in the Middle East, it's not just normalization. What is actually at stake here is that Saudi Arabia has an ask. The Crown Prince, he wants Saudi Arabia to be able to a nuclear power, and he wants the United States to support Saudi Arabia becoming a nuclear power in exchange for normalization with Israel. Now, I have to ask you, like, as sentient human beings with some memory of the last few decades, what could go wrong?
Right.
Jesus.
And I mean, it specifically in terms of like what Biden is supposedly doing behind the scenes, it really feels like that is really just more a way of it feels like that is management of the Democratic Party or those who would vote for Biden more than it is management of the Israelis. I mean, like,
yeah, that's exactly right. That's how I interpret it. And one sees it like this is like actually when Biden was, he launched his campaign at the church where the massacre happened. There were pro-Palestinian protesters. They were taken out, and then Biden responded by saying, "I'm quietly working behind the scenes to fix this." And then he got applause from, obviously the people that had carefully checked to make sure that they're on board. But that is the line that he's selling to Democrats, and I have to say, like, I don't know if they think like how long they can fool people. Like,
well, that's what I'm
there might
saying,
be
like,
some MSNBC brains that buy onto this.
That feels like something you can get away with for the first couple of weeks, but at one point it starts. In the first couple of weeks, I was like, okay, that seems reasonable. But at one point, it becomes clear, like, hey, that's not working. Like, you're past the point of assessing whether that's working. It's not working. And I don't know. There's, and
it's already having American casualties. I mean, that's the other thing. Like, how long can you say my diplomacy is working? When American body bags are coming back to the country, like, and ask yourself, like, do you actually want young American men and women to die so that like Benjamin Netanyahu can have free reign in Gaza? Because that is what is actually being sold here.
And the other element I want to bring into this too, Atrios pointed this out a couple of days ago. There's been multiple sort of Politico pieces where you hear advisors around Joe Biden saying like, this is going to be good for him because this is showing his capacity to deal with a crisis in a way that people will, I guess, contrast with Donald Trump's ability to deal with a crisis. But I mean, that presumes that it doesn't like go where it's going at this point. Well, that presumes two things. Yeah. One, it presumes that it does not actually escalate. And the only thing, and I want to make sure that we touch on this sort of like intel sort of piece about how much authority Iran has over these proxies in a moment. But it's that concept of like, this is going to show, the steady hand of Joe Biden. It requires that things do not continue to spiral out of control. And B, it also requires that you are satisfying domestic constituencies that theoretically would vote for you in the fall. And Joe Biden went to Michigan yesterday, and no one from the Arab or Muslim community was willing to meet with him because of what he's doing. And, that it's easy to see it like, it's a discrete group of people in Michigan, but this is a problem that seems to be expanding. Now we have 50% of the US population saying Israel's going too far. Like, on that judgment, he's also failing.
No, exactly. No, to take the 2 points together, like the idea that, this is always part of Joe Biden's selling point that I'm a foreign policy hand, and this is crazily, it's insane to think about this in retrospect. But one reason why Obama picked him as vice president was that he would please that kind of centrist constituency that sees Joe Biden as the mainstream foreign policy voice who knows his way around the world. And it's basically I think of it as the Joe Scarborough set. Like the people who like
there was just a piece about that today.
Who Joe Biden has a very simpatico with. But does this actually how the rest of America sees it? Like outside that, the people who watch those Sunday morning shows, 2% of the population or whatever, like in America, is Joe Biden actually seen as a competent foreign policy hand? And I would just point out the point where Biden's numbers really went south was with the Afghan withdrawal, and which is something I supported. Whether it was handled in the best way, I think we should debate about. But that also turned all those centrist foreign policy heads against Biden, and they were like part of his constituency. And so after that point, it fed into this sense of like, we don't actually have a president who's in charge. Things are a little bit out of control. He's supposed to make things normal. These images of American troops, fleeing from Kabul, that's not normal. And then, combine that with the inflation and what happened after that, you don't have a strong sense of Biden as someone who's actually like in charge of things. And so as long as you have foreign policy crises, as long as bad foreign policy is like dominating the news, that hurts Biden, and we can see this in the polls. So it's just a mind-boggling notion that like this helps Biden. Like that's absolutely not the case. And the fact that he thinks that, I mean, like where the Democrats do well is on abortion, on the social issues where the Republicans are seen as extremists. So it's just a very it's almost terrifying, like how out of touch they are.
Well, the
with reality, and I would add even where you can see he's been successful. Like one could argue from a certain perspective, getting NATO on board with Ukraine has been a success. But even there, like the American public is not as invested in foreign policy as the elite is. And to have a president that's very concerned with the Middle East and with Ukraine, when people are actually still concerned about the economy, people are concerned about the fact that, in half the country, you're going to end up in jail for an abortion. Like you're just taking away from the issues people care about and support you on and getting them to talk about other things. That doesn't help you.
Well, it does feel like this is a one of those rare issues or sort of like issue sets where Biden has an ideology. I mean, he has a predetermined, non-weather vane, because I basically have perceived him as a sieve in just about every other domestic politics for the most part, just trying to find out where the middle is. But this really does feel, I mean, we had multiple people on over the past couple of years talking about his failure to get back into the Iranian nuke deal quick. Yeah. And now it sort of feels like maybe that wasn't a failure maybe it is not a failure insofar as that was never their aspiration. It was not a failure in the sense that this was part of a broader strategy of following the Abraham Accords, creating this access, doing what Israel wanted to do, maintaining that threat out there as maybe as a way of creating more urgency and buy-in to the Abraham Accords.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. I mean, to understand the Abraham Accords, it's not just like, Saudi Arabia and Israel normalized, which I think one could support in the abstract. Is the idea that the foundation stone will be an anti-Iran policy, that you'll create an anti-Iran coalition that will bring in the major players in the region, headed by Saudi Arabia and Israel, and then get all the other countries on board to maintain American hegemony. And the problem with that is the Iranian, first of all, American foreign policy created Iranian power. Like Iran was very isolated, and then Bush invaded Iraq, and created the situation where Iran could actually expand its sphere of influence and popularity. But beyond that, and as an outgrowth of that, started supporting militias all over the place, which looked to Iran as a sponsor. Now, whether Iran actually controls those militias or, this is more like a buddy relationship. Like, I'll give you a few guns and, you'll occasionally help me out. But it's, that sort of regional coalition, that polarization, the idea that you're going to create an anti-Iran coalition, like, that in itself, like, is a pathway to war. Like,
well, I mean, the United States,
and then we're seeing that now.
Yeah, I was talking about this with Ken Klippenstein yesterday. There are basically, I forgot the second country he mentioned, but there are like 2 or 3 countries where the United States doesn't have a military presence in the Middle East, and one of them is Iran, obviously. And so it's the fact that Iran is not bowing to U.S. hegemony in that way, but also like this, even with Biden not being a president that's going to be assassinating Soleimani or whatever, like Trump was. The insistence, and you touch on this in your piece, that these groups are, these militia groups in the region that the U.S. forces are engaging with are Iran proxies, that they're doing the Iranian regime's bidding, is not really well presented. And the evidence for that, even though there is funding certainly from Iran to some of these militia groups, the like orders that are being given are, I feel like, wildly overstated in the Western press. And it still is this bipartisan drumbeat to have an adversarial relationship with Iran. Even though we made great progress in the Obama years, it's just all done away with now at this point, and Biden's doing nothing to bring us back there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is one thing that's not widely understood, but like Obama had a very different vision for the Middle East than Biden does, and Biden's vision is much closer to Trump's. And it is, I mean, I think the thing is that Iran as an enemy is a very convenient thing, because and it's convenient for not just Biden, but for the Crown Prince in Saudi Arabia and for Netanyahu, because you can organize your society around this. Like, this is the boogeyman, this is the enemy. And it's also, as you mentioned before, part and parcel of ignoring the Palestinians. Like, Netanyahu loves to talk about Iran because then it's like, we have this foreign power that's over there that we have to fight with. It's a serious enemy, and we don't have to actually think about, the 5 million people that are living under our occupation in various degrees. It's just, it's an inherently destabilizing philosophy, and as Emma mentioned before, like, it is one of the things that led to October 7, and it will lead to like further violence in the region. And the final thing I'll mention about destabilizing is, when America invaded Iraq, and all those images of torture at Abu Ghraib and Guantanamo, that like radicalized a lot of people in the region, and led to the rise of ISIS. And all the images that we're seeing out of Gaza, and the fact that the American president is on board for this, and also that the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia is basically not lifting a finger for the Palestinians. This will radicalize people in a way that we have not seen before. And all the Arab regimes that the United States is allied with are autocracies, but I think it's a mistake to think that these autocracies are immune to public opinion, and that they will actually are stable. Like, they, in the right circumstances, they will break, and they will break in very ugly ways.
Let's just sort of pivot, I guess, to the implications more within. We've touched on it a little bit in terms of like the election coming up. The Muslim Arab population alone in Michigan is not going to, in and of itself, doesn't necessarily have the numbers to, I think Biden won by, I don't know, 154,000 last time. I think there's maybe, there was 150,000 Muslim American voters last year. I don't imagine that they 100% went for Joe Biden, but to lose in Michigan a voting block, or potentially, is pretty damaging. Now, he's also meeting with union people, and he may have picked up some on that end. But across the board, this is an issue that increasingly feels like it is not going to help him in the election, to say the least. With that said,
and there was a political report which said, like, The strategists are aware of the problem in Michigan, and are trying to look for other votes that they can get to make up for the Arab American vote. Now, as you said, the Arab American vote might not be decisive, but it's not just Arab Americans that are upset.
Well,
about
yes,
this.
exactly.
By all the polling, this is hugely unpopular with Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, young Americans. It's more unpopular with women than among men. So you're basically at war with your own party. And you mentioned the unions. Yes, big endorsement from the union, but the auto workers called for a ceasefire.
The AFT,
which is a huge thing when you consider, if you know the Cold War history of that union and how aligned it was with hawkish foreign policy. The fact that they're coming out for a ceasefire is a big thing. And so you're basically at war with your own party, with the actual base of your own party. And as you said, it's an ideological thing with Biden. I think Biden sees himself as a foreign policy sage. As I've been around for a long time. I knew Golda Meir,
Right.
and he thinks that he knows best, but he's in defiance of the party. And I think it seems like a very mistaken policy. And with the Arab Americans, I honestly say, I would never have the heart to talk to anyone who's Arab and say you have to vote for Biden. Trump is so bad. How can you do that after what's happened?
Right.
After what we've seen?
Right. No, we've been in that exact same, literally in that position. And we can talk about lesser of two evils voting. Very difficult to refute the case if you, particularly, if you have family in Gaza, in particular. But
I mean, talk about the Michigan trip. They had wanted to meet with this doctor there.
Yes,
who lost 90 family members in Gaza. I don't even know how you get the nerve to make that ask.
And you know what else they did? You know what else they did in Michigan? They knew protests were happening. They didn't say where the location of his event was going to be until the very last minute. And then it was super, super closed doors and closed off because they've seen that every rally he goes to now, they have to chant 4 more years over the Genocide Joe protests. And that's not really a great look either from an optics perspective.
Yeah. I mean, we had made fun of Hillary Clinton because she didn't go to Michigan, right? But Joe Biden will go to Michigan in hiding, in the witness protection program. He's like Dick Cheney out there. We don't know where he is. And so I don't know if that's you have a tight election. That doesn't inspire confidence. Sam,
Now,
are you confident?
Oh no, I'm not confident. But I mean, at this point, I haven't been confident of anything since 2016. So I got out of that game. But but in terms of what they're thinking too, okay, we're also talking on a day where the job numbers are 350,000 new jobs. December was reassessed up. They revised the numbers up. Apparently, the Wall Street projections were half of that. I mean, it may end up having the impact of actually dropping the stock market. Not that this is a measure of the economy, but just it is a measure of expectations of what people thought was going to happen, because this is going to revive fears that the rate cuts that people have been anticipating, that I think Jerome Powell said were not going to happen maybe until May, may not happen until later in the year, at this point, because those numbers are not indicative of a cooling labor market. And wage growth reaccelerated. The acceleration of the wage growth had slowed, even though wages were still up. I can't help but think that, in the White House, they're like, the Israel stuff is going to help us with, the never Trumpers in the Republican Party and show that you have a steady hand. And the economy is going to get us back with the American public. And then abortion. And once Donald Trump gets convicted of a couple of different things or found liable, and starts reintroducing himself to the rest of the American public. I'm not convinced that they in the White House think that this is a problem. I mean, they just announced, I guess, yesterday that they're going to sanction what amounts to 4 people, as far as I can tell, violent settlers who are not American in the West Bank. And there's a lot of like American dual passport holders, frankly, who are some of the worst some of the worst of the worst in terms of the settler community. Certainly one of the most influential within the context. The Kahanists and whatnot. All of some of the worst, sort of like pre-Soviet immigration settlers in terms of our take came from Brooklyn essentially.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, like what, I don't know. Are you confident?
You know what? Like, if I thought the foreign policy was going to dominate, I would be a little bit worried, because I do think, like, unfortunately, Trump's strongman act appeals to people in times of chaos. I have to say, like, yeah, I mean, I think that the Democrats do have some advantages, and you name them, right? Like, I think it's not just the economy the numbers are good, but I think people are starting to feel it. Like, I think for a long time, people didn't feel it because of inflation, and wages actually gone down in real terms. I think that's flipped. And so the economy is better. The abortion is a huge thing. And, like, just Trump's, I think we can't underestimate how much, like, more than half the country really despises Donald Trump. And there's really, like, once it becomes crystal clear that he is the candidate for the Republicans, I think, I hope, like, it might become a little bit more even, but it's going to be tight. It's going to be tight. And I think you need, like, in a tight race, like, like very small things can flip it. So 100%. I don't think you should take the risk of, like, continuing to, like, anger and frustrate people. I think the reason why Trump is ahead of the polls is not that his support never really goes beyond the 47-48%. It's that, like, a lot of people who voted for Biden aren't willing to say they're voting for Biden now. He has to get those people back. So I just don't think, like, I'm not totally pessimistic. It's also the case that Democrats have overperformed in special elections and continue to do so. And we'll get to this, but I mean, I think the culture war stuff hurts the Republicans a lot too. So there's all sorts of reasons, to be guardedly optimistic, but like, it's still, like, the last 2 elections were very close. Like, even 2020, like, the popular vote was strong, but, like, within the electoral college, like 40,000 votes, in 3 states, and, like, Trump would have legitimately been reelected. So I think that, going into a close election, like, are you really gonna create a position where, like, people who voted for you in the past just don't even want to talk to you? Like, will refuse to, like, see you, where you have to, like, as Emma said, like, go around incognito, like, hi, I'm Joe Incognito, I'm running for president. I just think, like, that like, that's what worries me. Like, I think, if they weren't, like, actively pursuing a policy that's, like, so offensive to the base, I actually would be, guardedly confident. Like, I would think, like, Biden has some strong cards.
And the sort of the cost on the other side of that, like, calling for a ceasefire, it seems to me, had he called for a ceasefire in, like, week 3, I don't think that it would have cost him a single vote. Like, that's completely within the sort of very narrow parameters of the acceptable reaction of even a sort of, like, realpolitik foreign policy move by a president. The interesting thing about this, though, I will say this, that I think certainly in the White House, if it is ideological for Joe Biden, he has not sort of come to grips with, and I think a lot of people have not really contemplated this. If I was concerned about Israel's long-term health in terms of support from the United States, this would be the last thing that I would want Joe Biden to do, because there is no way, I think, following this, that a critical perspective on Israel and a full-throated support of Palestinian rights for self-determination does not become a litmus test for the future Democratic nominees. Like, I think this is, I didn't anticipate we would hit this point for another 5 or 10 years, to be honest. But
Yeah.
I always felt we would. But this is going to be the last Democratic presidency that supports Israel in this way, even or even does not support, I think, Palestinian statehood or some form, whether it's a one-state solution or a two-state solution, with vocally. I think that era of the Democratic Party, this has accelerated that process, it seems to me.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. And I to go back to the ideological point, like, we can't forget how old Joe Biden is. And if you I think the math, he was in his mid-20s.
He's older than Israel. He's older than Israel.
He's older than the state of Israel. Exactly. Israel's a little child to him. And he actually, he was in his mid-20s when the 67 war happened. And that really crystallized and changed public opinion. The people, and that sort of liberal Zionism was forged then. And it is forged by people who think that Golda Meir is still the prime minister of Israel, who have that sense of this is a social democratic country with a utopian mission to make up for the horrific crimes of World War II, and they're fighting heroically against the bullies in the neighborhood. He is of that moment, and he has it to an extreme degree that's beyond the political spectrum. I actually think aside from Trump, I don't know how Trump would have handled October 7th, but any other president, whether it's and maybe Bush Jr., but Bush Sr., Clinton, Obama, Reagan would have called for a ceasefire within weeks. And we
saw Anthony Blinken trying to do that
in Beirut in the 80s. Reagan, when they went into Lebanon, and they, Reagan called up Menachem Begin and said, Menachem, this is a Holocaust. Those were the words that Reagan used. And you have to stop this. And at that time, Biden gave an interview not long after where he said Reagan was wrong. Israel should have just kept on going in Lebanon. And that shocked, he told this to Menachem Begin, and that shocked Begin, because Begin thought okay, this guy's going too far. So Biden's ideology is to the right of Likud.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And it's unclear how much the Biden administration has to see in terms of domestic bleeding of their support before that happens. And I don't think that they're even I don't know that they're capable of even seeing it, as a real, as a non-worthwhile project in that circumstance.
Yeah, no, I don't. It's you have people who are formed in a particular way and have a view of the world, and Biden's view of the world is on this issue at least 20 or 30 years out of date.
All right. Well, let's just turn to one other thing that we have to talk about, because you were way ahead of the curve on this one, and I continue to be really baffled in many respects by it. Although, as much as I've read on, and I'm talking about the Taylor Swift thing. I am sort of culturally stunted. So, I had a vague notion of who Taylor Swift was. I knew she was a musician, but I don't think I had ever seen a picture of her and known that's Taylor Swift. But you wrote a piece back in October. What did you see then that has now metastasized into something that I can't even describe? I understand what's going on here.
Yeah, no, early in October, I had started to notice these articles in right-wing publications like The Federalist, blaming Taylor Swift for the decline of America. And I thought that was very odd. And I looked into it. The basic short answer is misogyny, right? like the strongest block of voters, like aside from the traditional ethnic groups like African Americans, but that support the Democrats are like single women. And that is the Taylor Swift demographic. She's the songstress of single women and single girls. And the it's not just that they think like, well, this is a voting bloc that votes for Democrats, but also that this is a voting bloc that is like the evil of the world. This is like classic misogyny of like Eve created evil, right? Like Taylor Swift is the sort of temptress that is leading women away from not getting married, not having kids as they should, not becoming like good Republican wives. So that was starting then, and now like everything else, it's taken a level. And at the time I was writing this, I was kind of worried, like, well, am I giving these cranks too much attention?
Right.
And like maybe I'm just like you do that sometimes where you kind of like notice a few nutty things on the right and you call attention to it. But actually, it turned out I underestimated these guys. They took this to a level of lunacy far beyond anything I could imagine. Of like the conspiracy theories that Taylor Swift is a psyop created by the deep state, and her relationship. I don't even know who this guy. I don't follow like you. I don't follow this.
He is a huge star, and he's about to play in the Super Bowl.
But only because
CIA,
of the deep
the CIA
state.
is basically not just engineering this relationship; is engineering the Super Bowl to create Biden support.
They won it last year.
Well, they play the long game. But here's the fascinating thing about it is like on some level, their whole notion of like, she's like a turncoat and Eve, and she like, she's bit into the apple or whatever it is, like the weird. And I understand why they lard on the whole psyop stuff, because that's the sort of like, that's their toolkit now, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they're in that.
Yeah.
But
it's a model that they have, so they apply to everything. Yeah.
They apply it to everything. But the amazing thing about it is like the latest polling from Quinnipiac showed Biden actually ahead in a head-to-head with Trump. And it was because of a growing, almost like a 10-point swing in the support of women. 5% went to Biden and 5 left Trump. And it's almost like they can't, but the idea that the way they're going to convince women to not is to attack Taylor Swift.
It's crazy. A lot of these guys are coming out of like pickup culture, right? The sort of manosphere. And if you read these guys, like their idea of courtship is you kind of like bully and harass and belittle women, and you'll destroy their self-confidence, and then they will finally go with you. Which I have to say, like, if that's your courtship techniques, what does that say about you? Like how appealing you are, that you have to basically use psychological warfare to attract.
Well, they think they can neg Taylor Swift into women voting for Donald Trump. Is that
yeah. This is that's your model of gender. Like just as they have a conspiracy model, the deep state model for everything. The model of gender is that gender works well when women are humiliated into submission, and then they will date us.
But is it also, Jeet, that she's a white woman? Like that's the thing that is just because they don't really care or sexualize or well, they do, but they don't consider black or non-white women to be in their periphery. But to Sam's point, which I hadn't made this connection yet, like they are quite concerned about the suburban white woman vote. You know who loves Taylor Swift more than than anybody? Suburban white women. And it's not just young girls, it's like my age and older grew up with Taylor Swift. So
like Barbie, it's a mother-daughter thing. But beyond that, I mean, there's a sort of prehistory to this, which again, like unfortunately, because I follow the right, I have to know this stuff. But it's also, there's this element of, there is nothing more, hell hath no fury like a Nazi spurned. Which is to say that like about 10 years ago, because Taylor Swift was so apolitical, she's white, she came from this conservative family. There was a lot of speculation among the sort of alt-right that she's a secret sympathizer. She's really one of us, and that and because she had that run-in with Kanye, which ironically it's totally reversed itself, right? But she was seen as the champion of whiteness. And I've actually had like Nazis write to me and say like, Taylor, they used to write to me and say, Taylor Swift is proof that, there is a white culture in America.
Yes.
And it's great. Like I have to say, even at the best of times, I don't know how any popular music is white, like in America, like, in terms
hers
of,
is really white. It's really
Hers
white.
is really white.
But like also the thing about Kanye, that's part of it too. She got on the scene being, now he's a Nazi, but like back in the day, he was the guy saying George Bush doesn't care about black people. He ran on stage and stole her moment away. That was her big cultural moment. And she milked the crap out of that. She wrote a song about it. Like her rise to superstardom was this scary black man going after a pure white woman and taking her shine away. I hated the vibe of that at the time, but now I'm realizing that was maybe the beginning of her kind of foray into these incel types loving her, these white supremacist types.
No, she was their fantasy girlfriend. They really thought like, if she met me, I'd have a shot, right? And now, and then she endorsed Biden. So there's a huge sort of psychosexual thing going on. Like, this is the thing though. And this also gives me hope. Like, we're talking about very weird people and on the right, and they can't hide their weirdness anymore. And somehow Trump has enabled them, empowered them to like just let it all hang out, and all their like freaky demons are like they talk about it. It's on the page, and I gotta think like Biden, not my favorite, but like if it's between him and these like crackpot incels who have sexually want to humiliate Taylor Swift because they thought she could have been their girlfriend and now she isn't, I gotta go with Joe Biden. Like, he looks good compared to them. The race thing is a very hard thing. It's actually, I mean, it's interesting because my daughters don't like Taylor Swift, and I hadn't made that connection, but I think the pure whiteness of the music might be a reason.
The fascinating thing about this is that they're using a tool that maybe in the past had worked or worked in a slightly different context, and it's not working anymore, but they don't know how to, there's no other tool for them to switch from. And in some ways it seems like it's exacerbating it. Like it
is like Joe Biden with Gaza. Like, this is ideology for them. This is not something they're doing like out of a cagey thinking like, we can win on this. It's like, this is what they believe. So two wars of folly driven by ideology. One in Gaza and one with Taylor Swift.
Well, that's why we love having you on, Jeet, because of your ability to write so eloquently on that sort of wide range of things. I mean, that's
it's a pleasure to be on.
Jeet Heer. We will put a link to both those pieces. The one about Biden's abject failure of his quiet diplomacy, and the one where you sort of anticipated this bizarre Taylor Swift gate, I guess. Maybe. Yes. Is it a gate yet?
Yes.
Jeet Heer, always a pleasure. Thanks, man.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, folks.
It is just a really interesting point. I mean, I know this is such like pop culture pablum, but like that Kanye thing too, at the time, he stormed the stage because Beyonce didn't win the music video for Single Ladies. And that was a lot of Black people at the time thought it was insane that was like a very iconic music video. It was a huge pop culture moment. And this little white girl who sang a love song that is quite, standard, won this award. And so that's when he drunkenly got on stage. And it's not right that he did that. It's messed up. But it was like a moment where, in this, basically it was a call out for like, why does this white mediocre music get rewarded and this Black artist, this strong Black woman doesn't get her due? And so I think that was the beginning of their love for her, and now she's rejecting them. I
remember that. I did not remember. I mean, I've just recently reread that, and I remember the incident.
Yes.
And I remember that it was Kanye. I didn't know, like, the name Taylor Swift, I didn't associate because I didn't follow this stuff. And I did, like, have an awareness of Beyonce, only insofar as that, like, I think Mila at the time was like, Beyonce. And I think maybe it was just 4 time.
Right.
And I do remember thinking, like, that tracks just in general, that, like, the white savior would, but I didn't realize, like, the opposite impact would be, like, she's protecting white culture and Kanye.
Yeah.
like,
There was a lot of that. The alt-right got really excited around the "Look What You Made Me Do" thing because that was her first single after Trump won too.
Right,
And,
right.
But yeah, I don't know.
But like, this is what I mean. I guess it's just, this was a moment where I remember literally having conversations with other girls my age at that time, and every white girl I went to school with was siding with Taylor Swift, and my black friends were like, I don't like her at all. And I remember thinking, like, there's something odd about this moment and how. And I'm not speaking for everybody, obviously, but the way that it was portrayed in the media, I thought was pretty.
We have a racist
pretty
media.
racist, yes.
Yeah.
So it doesn't. But Kanye's obviously insane, so that's, like, not the best avatar for it, but fascinating.
Folks, we're going to head to the fun half. Look at that. We are still efforting Tim Heidecker. People know that I have been in a long-time feud with him just because of a bunch of stuff that I think I don't need to go back over here.
Is that since he was on last year?
Well, no, that was even before then. I mean, it was like we had him on as, like, sort of some attempt to sort of bridge the gap.
Failed, right?
And he's just, I had found him very disrespectful. However, at the end
You hate
that. At the end of the day, I realize it's not about me. It's not about me and my feelings. It's about the work that we do. And I guess in some ways I sort of, almost, it came to my senses, but I was shaken out of my sort of, like, narcissistic, spiraling when I saw the journalism that he had done
Right.
in detailing Tim Pool's problem with diarrhea when
The son of the president.
the son of the president was on, and
He's a muckraking journalist.
and I thought,
Yeah, it was
That
Tim Pool
was
is a
real
muckraking
muckraking.
producer.
Raking lots of
and
muck.
yeah, and I thought, like, seeing that piece of journalism, I thought, like, you know what, Sam, grow up. This isn't about you. And so I have contacted. Heidecker has many, many levels of people that you have to sort of go through.
Right.
But I have, in a way, to sort of show my, I guess, deference and sincerity, contacted multiple people, and we are working on having Tim Heidecker. It may not be available live on Friday, but maybe we will do a pre-tape type of situation. Or maybe we could actually even do it in a fun half. But again, I just want to reiterate, it's not, I realize it wasn't about me or my feelings or Tim being disrespectful or, acting like a child. And that really, it's really more about supporting good journalism. when you
Yes,
find it.
right. I'm glad you were able to put that to the side.
Yeah. And as such, if you want to support our work, you can do so by becoming a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you not only get the free show free of commercials, but you get the fun half, you get the I Am the Show. We may have some other bonuses too. Every now and then we give like a merch discount. We do other stuff. We got stuff going. Oh yeah. Don't kid yourselves, folks. Jointhemajorityreport.com. Also, justcoffee.coop. Fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. It's fair trade coffee or hot chocolate. Mm-hmm. You can get the Majority Report blend. We've gotten a lot of people, I think, in December, got a bunch of Just Coffee, and we got a bunch of emails saying, I can't believe I waited this long. I've heard you say Just Coffee for 12 years, and I only now just got it, and I wish I could make up for those 12 years. But folks, do this now. Don't have regrets. JustCoffee.coop. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. Emma, ESVN.
Yesterday, Bradley and I previewed Chiefs 49ers in the Super Bowl. We
The
talked a little
Psyop
bit about the
Bowl.
conference game. We did touch on the Taylor Swift stuff. I'm like just loving this topic because people seem to get mad at me no matter what. But like my honest opinion is I think pretty clear at this point of what
Emma's
she represents
unable
in
to
media.
swallow her long-standing beef with Taylor Swift to hoover up all the Swifties
All right,
that are looking for a political home right
This
now.
is my stance. The woman has given off more greenhouse gas emissions by flying all over the planet, like more than any other human being. She represents pure whiteness in media, and I find the fascination to be a bit like, I feel for other artists who don't have that same representation. And the fact that she's constantly presented in this way, I think is a reflection of how far we have to go in terms of like other people getting the shine in society. And yeah, I don't love the politics of it. I hated the Kanye stuff. I thought the whole undertones of that were super racist. And so I still maintain that to this day. I know she has a ton of fans. I don't really care. I don't love what she represents in media. I think she represents whiteness and capitalism. And I don't stand for those things. So there you go. Anyway, I talk about that on ESPN. And then we also spoke about...
Sounds like a great sports show.
Yeah. And then we talked about Micah Parsons going after the Cowboys, which was pretty fun, and some of the coaching hires. YouTube.com/ESPN show.
Yeah, no wonder why they don't like hanging out and having sush with the boys. No, I don't get it anywhere.
I'm not fun at parties, I guess.
This is why you guys don't get invited places.
Patreon.com/Left Reckoning. On the Sunday show this weekend, David Griscom and I talked to Chip Gibbons about Pelosi and her Russia, China, Palestine protesters stuff, as well as the ICJ. Chip does a very strong sort of case that the ICJ thing represented a win, and yeah, we talk about that. So Patreon.com/Left Reckoning.
See you in the fun half.
You are in for it.
All right, folks, 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just wanna degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflake says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Seder! What a fucking nightmare!
Bring back DJ Danner.
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Danner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense.
See white people doing drugs, they look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males
Psych. Fuck 'em. Snowflake says what? Snowflake says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Okay, I'm making stupid money. Hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are black. And the Africans are back.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keeping it 100.
Can't knock the hustle.
Come on, fuck 'em, fuck 'em. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me, Jew boy.
I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are black. Africans are back.
Come on. Come on. Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland. It is the fun half. Casual Friday. So much fun, ladies and gentlemen.
Sorry for pissing off the cult.
It is,
whoopsie.
It is.
You're a cult, you guys. You're all a cult. That's what this is. That's what the Swifties are.
Swifties versus the Vigleys.
Great. I'll take it on. I'll side with rationality and non-white corporate feminism. There you go.
Beanie Bill. Hey, Sam, longtime listener. Just listened to your Jesse Singal call-in. My call-in to, or his call-in to?
It was a while ago, but
that
yeah.
was months and months and months ago. I'm sure the war reference you mentioned was Sam Harris. War reference?
Oh, yes. Torture, the case for torture.
Torture. Okay. Any reason you didn't reference that seemed weird when you kept saying the author rather than use Sam's name? To be honest with you, I don't remember, but it's conceivable that I just didn't want to get into an argument about Sam Harris, but wanted to talk about the actual thing. But I'm if I understand what you're talking about. American Dream. Ultimately, if we take both American parties to the extreme, Dems would have everything pretty much the same, but with more women and people of color in charge. Republicans would essentially have an ethno-nationalist socialist state. You think ethno-nationalist socialist state?
Oh God, we're just.
It would be no. You're wrong. I mean, just look at the deal that is the tax deal that exists right now. Republicans want corporate cuts to taxes, want cuts to corporate taxes. Democrats, and make no mistake, it's not going nearly far enough, but Democrats are calling for an expansion of the so-called earned income tax credit, or I should say the child tax credit, which is essentially a payment. We call it a tax credit, but it's a payment for support of children. So I would say your assessment of both parties is wrong. It's just wrong. I mean, not 180 degrees wrong, but probably close to like 150 degrees.
America is not a white country by standards of, like, say, Western countries. The idea that we could do a ethno-nationalism here, whether it's socialist or otherwise, we're too diverse for that. Like, there is a definite impulse toward that among white communities.
You could do it if you gave it to white people.
You couldn't. You could.
Oh, you could just do the socialism for white people.
There's too many non-white people here.
Hey, we don't need to worry about that.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
I still don't even fully
They'll
understand.
go back to their S-hole countries.
I'm reading the IM and I still don't really understand what it meant.
Well, first of all, it starts with a fundamental misunderstanding of the two parties.
Yeah.
And then it, based upon that misunderstanding of the two parties, says it would be easier to take over the Republican Party, which is also, you should do that.
On the socialist side?
We've had Kowalski on. Nobody here is saying don't go primary Republicans as a socialist. In fact, I said, we told Kowalski, who's called in, talked about doing that in Nebraska, going to Republican things. And guess what? It's very intimidating and difficult to do because they're lunatics. Good luck, though.
Yes. Pac-Mans. I've been trying to find a reliable source for information, news, updates, ongoing war in Sudan. Do you guys know where I might be able to get the most reliable information? Any chance MR is going to cover this issue in the future? Maybe have a guest on. I think we've been talking about maybe having a guest on.
Did we not have a guest on before? We did. We had one. She was time crunch, so we didn't get too much from her, I believe. It's hard though. But what is her website?
African Arguments.
African Arguments. That would be my recommendation based
Raga
on.
Maccabi is
Yep.
We'll keep looking.
Ryan from Tennessee. Can I get a shofar for my beautiful baby girl, Eleanor Rose, that was born this week? Named after my late grandmother, whose leftist politics and moral compass turned me into the person I am today. Left is best, free Palestine. Yes. Massachusetts soldier of God, I'm heading down to the border to stand with Governor Abbott and help the Army of God put our best foot forward in defending the southern border. We'll get to that. There's some crazy video coming out of that thing. Steve Austin, when is the next Tort conference? It is in April. I don't know exactly when, but Nate in Cape Cod, the 20th anniversary of Dean Scream just passed. The bad audio mixing job altered the course of the Democratic primary. I don't think it would have happened before or after that very specific media environment of the early 2000s.
Was that after Iowa when he did the Dean
It was
Scream?
the night of Iowa and
Yeah.
was lost, but he came in third in Iowa. I think it is. I think that's a little bit overdetermined.
Like I've always thought that and I was very new to paying attention to politics at the time, but it seemed like maybe this is too simplistic, but they just wanted an excuse to for a narrative to say this guy's done, and that was a great opportunity.
I mean, look, I do think that it's quite possible that his continued existence in that race could have helped someone was Wesley Clark in that race? I gotta go back but because Dean was the anti-war candidate in that race. Now, of course, his politics are a lot more conservative than I think that people understood, but he was more populist at that time, and particularly in his fundraiser. He was...
Yeah, Clark was there too in 04.
He was the first Democratic candidate to basically build a campaign on small donor contributions. And that was sort of I don't want to say the full extent of his populism. There were some things that I think that he was smart about. He was for a 50-state effort for the Democratic Party, which in some respects, Biden has been a lot more state-focused on building sort of like the party apparatus in these states than, let's say, Obama was. But Dean turned out to be, in some instances, really bad, in his later career. And I cannot remember where he was on Medicare for All. I seem to think that he was talking, the language that was different at that time. So he was talking universal health care, probably more so than single payer. But
he also, what year was it? 2016 when was he running to lead the DNC?
Well, that was after that.
That was after that, right?
That was shortly after that.
Right,
It was
after
2004. I think he was the DNC chair.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Joe from Wisco. Hey, Sam, I've heard you talk about the 15% administration cost for Medicare. Isn't this number? I don't know. You're cut off after that, but no, it is 2 to 3%. There's a 15% maybe difference between the administrative costs for Medicare and private insurance. Maybe that's what you're mistaken. Gerald from New Orleans. Can I get a shofar for my sweetie? Today is our 14th anniversary as well as her birthday. She's the love of my life, and I have no idea what I would do without her. Yes.
I can tell you love her because you're calling her your sweetie to us.
Yeah, there you go.
It's very sweet.
Dearborn, my mayor, Abdullah Hammoud, refused to meet with Biden. My neighbors in East Dearborn are very upset. Every time I pick up an issue of the Arab American newspaper, there's a front page story about how Arab Americans no longer support Biden. Mike House, Sam, this isn't policy use. This is the actions of an old man who recognizes he's not getting a second shot at this and wants to go down in history as the man who solved the Israel-Palestine crisis, whether it takes a massacre or not. I
don't know what you mean.
That's a wrong assessment.
He's not doing that either way.
Metal Gear Slime. I can't help but think that if Biden had lost in 2020 and Trump was in office, the anti-genocide movement would be supported by Democrats instead of getting pushback. maybe internationally by our allies as well. Curious if you guys agree and this is a point for accelerationism, or if the APAC influence would still make this issue bipartisan.
No, I mean, my take on this is that it's good to have Biden being clear about where the leadership of the party is. The ceasefire energy is still only on the Democratic side. But instead, if Trump was in office, I mean, it's possible that he might say something. I don't know. It's just hard to predict that. But like, I just don't think I just don't think that's a.
It would be a lot more difficult to tell where the Democrats were.
Exactly, they'd be fundraising on it, and then we'd be, not anywhere closer. I don't know. Possibly, I don't know.
Jermaine Leftist, gotta miss today's show. I'm attending a protest against the far right in my my small hometown. Great.
Good job.
Not right wings and the Young Turks are pushing the defund the police cry. Hell, St. Louis Metro Police are ramming their vehicles into LGBTQIA bars and beating up the owners and blaming the owners for everything. Her husband is a military vet, so are all vets thugs? Tomo Link.
Oh.
Happy Casual Friday, folks. Welcome back, Emma. Glad the woke airlines got you there and back in one piece, but to be on the safe side, I'd ask the pilot for their body count. Here in Britain, our Foreign Secretary, Lord Cameron, has announced that Britain is considering recognizing the state of Palestine. Also, Emma, Francesca is right. You've done a great job on Israel and Palestine. The whole crew has, as I've said before, Emma. You're a great addition to the Great Majority Report, and I'm sure Michael will be very proud of you.
That's very kind. Thank you.
Al Conniption, the DOJ could benefit politically from the splashy headline. Folks don't always hear about the follow-up to charges that get dropped. Anecdotally, I followed the news regularly, and only yesterday looked up Andrew Gillum to find out what happened to his campaign finance charges from 2022 and learned all the charges were dropped after a hung jury was declared on some of the counts. Interesting. Folks, the number is 646-257-3920. You're guaranteed to wait only an hour or so today, and no guarantee to get on to the program. Let's talk about the impeachment hearings that are going on. As you know, the impeachment, resolution cleared the Homeland Security Committee in the House. I think it was on Wednesday or Tuesday on a party line vote. The Republicans don't have many votes to spare on this impeachment proceedings. It's going to be a party line vote. Here is Ken Buck, who apparently will be a no impeachment vote. It's good that they're waiting for all the evidence, but nevertheless, this is that kind of thing.
Were previously undecided. What led you to decide you will vote no?
Well, this is not a high crime or misdemeanor. It's not an impeachable offense. This is a policy difference. Let me, from the outset, say there is a crisis on the border. The law needs to be enforced. But if we start going down this path of impeachment with a cabinet official, we are opening a door as Republicans that we don't want to open. The next president, who is a Republican, will face the same scrutiny from Democrats. It's wrong, and we should not set this precedent.
Okay, a couple of things. One, the precedent's been set. That's happened already.
Yeah.
Even if they get a no vote. Two, there is no crisis on the border. We have underfunded the processes in which we process immigrants and refugees. And we have denied these people who cannot magically disappear. There is no we have statutes. We have international law that require that people's claims for asylum are heard and processed and adjudicated. And there is no reason why we cannot allow those people, while we're in that process, if it's going to be a long time, to be out on parole with, if they can show that they have a place to stay and they have family here or they have friends. And then we can also, in many instances, give them the opportunity to work and support themselves. And never mind, even that's I'm talking bare minimum.
Yeah.
I'm talking bare minimum. It's not even like a policy prescription or an ideological prescription. That's just like, this is just physics.
And if the Republicans are so worried about who's coming into the country, one of their talking points is that there's terrorists that are coming in. Well, you know how you could make these determinations if you didn't have the border so militarized and people could come through and go through an application process.
An application process, and you have other, other immigrants who are not afraid to basically come in and say like, hey, there was a weird person I was with or something to that effect. There is no crisis, but the beauty of this, even for Ken Buck, is that he can say there is a crisis all the while he's not voting for the impeachment of Mayorkas. And again, all what I just said was just basically an administrative addressing of the processes of making those adjudications. Never mind, in my opinion, we have plenty of room for all of these people, frankly. I saw a video that Crowder was like touting, and apparently there's like an independent journalist, but he gets very uptight about people using his footage. And he went to like on some place in California, and there was about, I don't know, maybe 50 to 100 immigrants. And he's sitting there, and this guy speaks Spanish, and he was asking, where are you from in Spanish? And when people would, and then some people were like, he's like China and like this, and there were people from like Central and Latin America, and South America, and Russia, and China, and maybe one or two other places, and it was like the vast majority of them like they had kids. Or there was like, like a couple, or they were.
You mean human
women.
shields?
It was all these people who were like trudging up a thing, and obviously been working. Like you could tell, like they were ended this like incredible journey,
right?
And I know that this video was supposed to be like intimidating, like like an onslaught. This is part of the invasion, and it just sort of like honestly like just looked like a bunch of people who were just hardworking, determined, like with some measure of grit, and their kids there, and they were exhausted, and they were so excited to be in the country, and like people, the guy was like going China, and they're like, yeah, China, and like they were so excited that they had made it through this journey.
Right.
And that's Crowder's representation. If you go to Andrew Callahan's channel, I know he's back after kind of taking a hiatus after he had some accusations made against him. It's totally fair if you don't want to consume his content. But I did watch some of what he did at the migrant detention camp at the Arizona border.
Who's this?
Andrew Callahan. We had him on this program before, right?
Oh, yeah.
All gas, no brakes guy.
Yeah, all gas, no brakes. Now Channel 5. And he spoke to these migrants, and like I was bawling at the end because of the way that he humanizes them and how people are just they're fleeing violence, they're looking for a better life, they have an aunt, they have a cousin, they're wanting to be reunited with their family, and it's kids.
And you contrast that with like the fascist lie of like there isn't it like Dave Rubin the other day, isn't it weird they're only sending these men like it's some sort of military age men invasion?
Oh yeah, it's children too, and women.
You look at these people and it's like like
pregnant women drowned in the Rio Grande. A pregnant woman drowned in the Rio Grande because of their booby traps with razor wire. And I just want to say, Ken Buck is saying this too because he's not seeking another term, right? And then also, it's interesting because as Denver and as Colorado gets even more blue, because there's a lot of young people moving there, his district is in a Denver suburb. It includes it as well. So, like, these are some of the kind of, I think, changing demographics that are pushing certain Republicans like Buck. I mean, that might have informed his decision not to.
Here's Dan Crenshaw, who sort of like, this is a complete waste, but I'll do it.
So while I still have you here, there's a separate move afoot on the part of many in your party to try to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas. It might be a Republican-only vote if even the votes are in that House committee, let alone the House itself. What do you think of all of this?
Look, I think we're desperate for some action, right? And I think that's what this is about. I think what really needs to happen is we need to win elections and we need to get border policy changes done. You know, that gets to another question about the ongoing negotiations in the Senate that we have yet to see. But look, I'll vote for impeachment because this administration, whether you want to blame on Mayorkas or whether you want to blame the White House, this administration has deliberately violated its oath of office by refusing to execute the laws of the land. And I would point specifically to the paroling authorities that they have. I think they've abused those wildly. And so just for that, you might have grounds for impeachment.
All right.
Well, wait a second. Is it, as he said at the beginning of the thing, it's just that we can't get anything done, and so we really want to get something done? Or is it that there's actual grounds for impeachment? I think that was like a moment where you just sort of see the guy go get caught off guard. Oh yeah, no, this is total BS. We're just doing this because we can't pass anything else, frankly. We can't pass anything else. And then as he's talking, realizing, oh, wait a second, I forgot. I'm in the Republican Party. There's grounds for impeachment. Oh, without a doubt.
That's how they're talking about it behind the scenes, right? I mean, that's how they're 100% how they're talking about it. They were doing deals, right, about the Mayorkas impeachment, to trade off with certain of the budgetary measures that the
totally
far right Republicans were pushing for.
This is how Mike Johnson stays
exactly
keeps his job. And recall also that 3 months ago, the whole reason why they weren't passing the budget was because we're not getting a border bill. And so, and I am not giving Biden credit for this, Biden goes and gives the Republicans almost exactly what they want. And they won't even bring it to a vote.
Yeah. Instead, you got some Republicans trying to impeach his DHS head. What is they say he's not enforcing the law. They don't ever really say what the law is that they're talking about. What is the law that the White House and the administration is not enforcing along the border? I would like to know.
Well, it's changed multiple times because at first they were saying he wasn't enforcing existing laws, but then they were saying once the bipartisan immigration legislation was going through the Senate that actually they don't require legislation, that Biden could, by executive order, reinstate a ban on catch and release, reinstate remain in Mexico unilaterally. So the fact that he's not doing that he's not unilaterally closing the border is also a lack of enforcement of policy.
But that's your opinion, man. That's your you elect a Republican and he can do those
At first
things.
It was we need border legislation, we need HR 2 specifically, Mike Johnson and those House Republicans specific wish list for immigration legislation. Then it's we don't need legislation, we just need Biden to impose executive orders. Now they're saying there's absolutely nothing that can be done by Biden to, actually adjudicate any policy on this.
Who was Trump's head of the FTC? What was his name again?
FTC.
Oh, I mean, whatever. I want to impeach Trump's head of the FTC because he's not doing antitrust. I mean, you're not enforcing antitrust. Well, I mean, that's because that's the agency head's discretion under the administration, and I don't agree with it. I wish he was doing antitrust, but he's not violating the law.
Let's play this clip, and then we'll get to the. Where is that guy? He was Michael Yon, right? Is this the one where he says that the Jews are doing it? Yeah, this is interesting. Someone just IM'd this and we had pulled this clip. This is really impressive. Just to give you a sense, I mean, we should say that the trucker convoy that was set up to ostensibly go to Texas and go to the park there. I can't remember the name of the park. Shelby Park.
Yeah. To honk their horns or something?
To, I guess, bolster Governor Abbott's basically.
They're playing dress
stand up. Yeah. And we've reported that it was basically God, apparently, who suggested that they go.
You gotta listen to him.
And we should say the convoy seems to be falling apart a little bit because of dueling sort of charges of pedophilia. But before we get to that, here is a clip of one of the speakers. He's a former Green Beret named Michael Yon. He is at Dripping Springs, Texas. So they've gotten close. They're close.
Which, by the way, is outside of Austin. it's not even that close to the border yet.
Well, it's in Texas.
Yeah, they're in Texas, though. They are in Texas.
And
they're migrating there.
Here is, he is, well, you can see that the border and like all these issues. Let me put it this way.
The symbolism here.
On the right, the issues are connected. Here you go.
When you hear that shit, you better get ready. Your phone better be flipping off that safety switch and get ready for combat, because this shit's game on, right? Now, when we're down in the Darien Gap, we're seeing Afghans come across constantly. Chuck Holmes see them, Taylor see them, and Vandersteel see them, and they're coming across our border every day, right? Let me tell you what. Hamas, are you listening to me? Listen, Hamas.
Pause it for 1 second. Now, he's also mad that people aren't listening to him. There's people that are talking. But I just wanted to make it clear that down at the Darien's Gap, and I don't know, did he say Chuck Colson?
Like the old Nixon guy?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he had seen it, but he said that in down Darien Gap, which is like down near Panama, or I think it's part of Panama actually, there are Afghans coming. Now it's quite possible. Like I say,
anything happened in Afghanistan in the last a couple decades that would
there might be a reason why there's a certain cohort of Afghanis that want to leave the country. Particularly ones that may have helped when we invaded and took over Afghanistan and occupied Afghanistan. But nevertheless, somehow the Afghanis are bad now.
Because they say Allahu Akbar, which means God is good, right? Just note that this otherizing of Arabic language and making it sound really scary is happening. We're back in another big wave of it.
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
Let me tell you what, Hamas, are you listening to me? Listen, Hamas is coming across, Hezbollah is coming across, Venezuela is filled with Hezbollah. You understand that? Venezuela is filled with Hezbollah. They speak Spanish fluently. Their soccer team is Venezuelan, right? Their body language is Venezuelan. They grew up in Venezuela. They're coming across constantly. One of the main groups that brings Brett Weinstein just said, do you see that message he just sent? Anyway, one of the main funders of this, well, the United States is the main funder, right? Another main funder is HIAS, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, Jewish, right? This is quite interesting because they are actually funding the people. They're going to come to places like Fort Lauderdale, synagogues, and they're going to scream, Allahu Akbar!
All right, pause it for 1 second. I just want to catch you up here as to where we're going. His argument is that there's a lot of Hezbollah presence in Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
They're sleeper cells who have been trained to their body language. It looks Venezuelan. They speak Spanish.
They've been recruiting off the fact that we destroyed the Venezuelan oil industry.
Yes,
apparently.
And what's funding the influx of these Hezbollah is the United States, and of course
the Jews.
In the form of the HIAS organization, and I guess presumably he says that the Hezbollah that's coming in is going to be attacking Jewish synagogues. But
the Jews are bringing them in.
The Jews are bringing them in, which, is a way of throwing off.
Yeah.
Throwing off people.
What throws people off too is that the Hezbollah are actually Venezuelan. They look, they sound, they grew up in Venezuelan, but they're also Hezbollah.
Yeah.
Mi nombre es Hezbollah.
Now, but you just go backwards. Now, I know what you're thinking. The audience is really starting to turn a little bit because he's now accusing the Jewish, from bringing in Hezbollah. And I know you're thinking like, oh God, this is one of those scenes where the audience like starts to get creeped out by the guy. No, actually, no, that's not the way it is.
Are they just like this?
They love
They are actually funding the people. They're going to come to places like Fort Lauderdale synagogues, and they're going to scream, Allahu Akbar, and they're going to shoot the shit out of them, right? And they're coming across the border, and it's being funded with Jewish money, right? And highest.org has the names of many of the funders on their website. Our borders are wide open. It's our government that's doing it. It's not the Mexican government. It's the U.S. government is the main funder of what's going on. Anyway, I've said enough. Y'all have a nice night.
No, you keep going. Huge applause for this guy. Not the level of discomfort with him blaming the Jews for the immigrants that come in. I mean, I don't know what to say. Like,
I'm glad he said it. It's great.
Yeah.
This is the great replacement theory. This is
100%.
You know why they cheer like that? It's because this is the text and the subtext of all of this, and it doesn't matter that, like, this is why the right, the most racist, anti-Semitic people on the planet love Israel. It's because they're deeply anti-Semitic, but what they freaking love more than anything is people with a darker skin tone, or maybe who are Arabic, getting killed. Like, they love seeing that massacre. And it doesn't matter if they're anti-Semitic in every other context. They'll love what Israel's doing just because of the Arab blood being spilled.
To be fair, I mean, Balfour also had a problem with Jews.
Yes.
One of his ideas was like, let's put them here. They're not mutually exclusive, even definition.
Kind of synergistic, actually.
Exactly.
Yes.
Calling from a 315 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
It is. I go by R-Fight in the Twitch chat, and I'm from Vermont.
Okay, R-Fight.
I'm a fairly new listener, so like I know that you, Sam, are you have a former tobacco habit, right?
Yeah.
And maybe nicotine as well.
Well, I mean, they go hand in hand.
Oh yeah. And I guess I'm directing this at anybody else that might have any takes on it, but the Vermont legislature is, in my opinion, acting somewhat tyrannically in that they are making moves to take away our menthol cigarettes. I guess what I'm trying to get at is there any like would you support a federal ban on like flavored tobacco or how? Yeah,
sure. I mean, this comes up from time to time. Right? Like, I mean, it came up when cigarette smoking was banned from restaurants and public spaces, and that took over a course of 10 years. It came up like in this city when Michael Bloomberg, who I am not a fan of, banned then they banned what was that that kind of oil?
Cloves.
What? No, not cloves. I'm talking like hydrogenated, I think it was a cooking oil or something to that effect, and they banned that because it had like sort of like a microplastic in it, and people eating that stuff, and then they banned like 40 ounce or 80 ounce slushies and sodas, and I am for that because it is a poison. And when it's put in menthol, it certainly attracts more kids. But I also don't mind it being banned for adults. I think I don't think it would be a bad thing if cigarettes were banned or at least like considered much more strict, in the way that it's sold. Like you got to have like a specific tobacco store, like in the same way they might like a liquor store or something like that. I mean, I don't know if I would fully ban it, but I think it's I don't have a problem with the menthol ban.
Yeah, like I've heard the arguments that like like you said it attracts children and all of this really does serve to just put money in like tobacco tycoons' hands, but
well, not just put tobacco in tobacco tycoons' hands. It also is subsidized by the public. Because, I mean, if you look at, smoking's relationship to cancer and how many of those people end up, having to be treated for cancer on the public dime. I mean, there's a public health, it's a public health issue as well. And I mean, look, there was a time where it's like, how can you ban 50-ounce sodas? And I'm like, well, I mean, how come we're not marching against the idea of there not being 4-ounce sodas? Like there should be. Like, I mean, this is what I would do. I mean, like, I guess I am not concerned with the concept of government overreach when it comes to, reasonable steps that are about public health, particularly in terms of like products that are sold. Like, I mean, anything I would like to see, like, government say to cigarette companies, you can no longer sell by 20 packs. Or if you sell a 20 pack of cigarettes, you also got to sell a 4-pack of cigarettes. So the people who are trying to quit have the ability, it's easier for them to quit. Like I would like to see that type of measure too.
I like that.
Yeah. I mean, so I don't really have an issue with this a state outlawing menthol cigarettes. I don't. I think it's going to bring about good health.
I like the talking points you're hitting me with. But it's also hitting me now. Like, how is selling menthol more dangerous than selling something like
my guess
flavored
is
vodka?
I mean, my guess is that there's a significant amount of data that shows that it promotes greater smoking amongst youth, or that it inhibits people's understanding of what makes it bad for you. And it also could be conceivably that the stuff that creates the menthol is also even more carcinogenic than it not existing. But I mean, if you could show me, and to be fair, and I just want to cop to this, I haven't done the research on that. If you could show me that there is no research that shows that it's any more problematic than just cigarettes, I would say it doesn't make sense to me. But I would be in favor of then like doing all cigarettes, maybe. So that's the only thing I can tell you.
All right.
Appreciate the call.
Thank you.
Calling from a 403 area code. Who's this? Where you calling from?
Is this me?
Yeah.
Ah, cool. Is this the DeSantis lie hotline, or have I got the wrong number?
You got it. DeSantislie.com.
It's Matt from Alberta.
Matt from Alberta. What's on your mind?
Well, currently I have a 15-month-old, and my city, I don't know if you know the daycare $10 a day program Canada has, but they're all controlled by the provinces. The federal government gave a program to make daycare costs go down to about $10 a day.
Jeez.
With subsidies. So it's pretty sweet. Like sitting at $300 instead of $1,200 a month.
Yeah.
So our daycares in my city, at least right now, are doing a bit of a strike because our province isn't increasing the cost of living adjustment. So they're about losing $30 a kid to keep their business up and running. And yeah, I just have struggling to even find daycare at this point.
Oh, that's
So,
rough.
well, we have an insane premier right now that's just making everything worse, from education to trying to privatize healthcare in Canada, which everybody understands how bad it is where you guys are. Yeah, it's bad here now.
Yeah, I wonder if you could do
And then-
like informational tours where you send people into the States and just, interview them about how much their healthcare costs.
Well, I tell them all the time, like, oh, that's BS. There's no way a kid costs $20,000 to have. I'm like, I didn't pay a cent. I didn't pay a cent for my kid.
Oh my God.
I paid it in taxes.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then just like a couple days ago, our premier just did a parental rights thing. So now people that have trans kids can't get the HRT unless they've already been on a program for that. So yeah, it's been super great.
How is that parental rights? Parents
exactly.
have to sign
Like
off on these things. It's absurd.
Yeah, it's just all the crazy, like, mega conservative stuff reaching its way up here. So yeah, when I hear people arguing about like voting, I'm like, guys, I used to have like a pretty left wing leadership in my province, and then within 6 or 5 years now, we're going super draconian. Like, I don't mean to preach the vote thing, but I mean, hey, it can happen here. It can happen anywhere.
Yeah, a lot of not great things coming on from around the world these days, but appreciate the call.
Yeah, I don't think so. Okay. All right.
Bye.
What is like, if you were, to estimate what childcare costs in New York City right now?
Oh my God. I mean,
$1,500 a month or something?
I to be honest with you, I can't remember. I mean, we got Saul into preschool pretty early, and it was a co-op, and for the life of me, I can't remember how much it was. But like the idea of $1,500 a month at a co-op, even, I think it was probably around that, and it's maybe it was a little more. I can't really remember.
It's everywhere too. South Dakota has a massive lack of options for childcare, where people are literally sitting out of the workforce.
We had, under the American Rescue Act, it's another thing that was supposed to be in the Build Back Better bill, was subsidizing daycare.
Yep.
And daycare, daycare centers or whatever you call them. And we lost that as well. Joe Manchin, honestly, that guy, unbelievable.
Not a good person.
Just unbelievable that we don't have the capacity to make that guy demonized enough that the rest of his life is like constant reminder of just how many hundreds of millions of people, really, hundreds of millions of people, he made their lives anywhere from just a little to a lot more worse than it need to be.
Yeah.
Whether it's like a student loan, whether it was, childcare or, the time off, paid sick leave. I mean, on and on and on. So many things.
It's like I watch horror movies sometimes, and like halfway through, after the monsters killed like 20 people, I'm like, well, this isn't as bad as what like Joe Manchin does.
Honestly.
Like when you actually aggregate it.
Yes. Calling from a 469 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Eddie from Fort Worth.
Eddie from Fort Worth. What's on your mind?
I want to talk about a specific individual, Stetson Kennedy. Have you guys heard of him?
I'm sorry. Can you speak into the phone more?
Is my phone not working well? Can you hear me?
Well, are you on a speakerphone or like a headset?
Yes, I am on a headset, but
Now you're better.
my phone doesn't work.
Okay, now
Can you
you're a
hear
little
me?
bit better. Yeah. Okay, what do you want to ask about?
Hello?
Hello?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Is this better?
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry. I want to talk about an individual named Stetson Kennedy.
Stetson Kennedy?
Stetson Kennedy, yes.
I don't know who that is.
This is an individual born in the early 1900s, about 100 years ago.
Okay.
He was a white individual. He inherited land and everything from his uncle, random uncle. His uncle happened to be a member of the KKK. And, you know, once he got through all his stuff, he noticed, oh my God, my uncle is a huge member of the KKK, but not only is he a member of the KKK, he is just one of these individuals, just like Nixon, just one of these people that like to write everything down. So he wrote down a ton of stuff involving the KKK, from terms to members to essentially all the things they infiltrated.
Wow.
And yes, so he figured out, oh my God, I can't really go to anybody to do this. What can I do with this information? Because he figured out, oh my God, the cops, they're also KKK members, but they also had a ton of these little quirky things, like they had Klans meeting, they had all these dumb things, but it was all KKK legitimate stuff. But because he realized he couldn't go to cops to turn this stuff in, or to law enforcement, or to anybody to do this, the next best thing he did was he went to the radio show and started this program. I have called him before, specifically about how a superhero beats the Klan. This later on got put into comic books, but the reason that's important is because something you mentioned a couple days ago about how people hate watching things in their kid because it's a mirror to themselves.
Yeah.
The reason it was so effective back in those days, because there was no internet. The only thing that existed was essentially radios and comic books. So kid culture carried throughout the United States, and it was able to pierce America by and far by the 50s. And that's why when the 50s come around, there's specific comic books associated with what I'm saying. And what happened and why it's a battlefield today is the right wing realized, oh my God, the worst things that can happen to our movement is having our kids not only out inform us, but make us look silly from a very childish perspective. Stetson Kennedy, but that's what I wanted to talk about.
Oh, that's cool.
Y'all have a good day.
Yeah, he looks fascinating. Thanks for the recommendation.
That would be great. I would love to see if there's a book on that guy. Thank you. I appreciate the call, Eddie.
He was detained in Paris for a year in the 50s because his passport was revoked by America.
Oh, wow.
God.
Jesus. Yeah, died at 94, infiltrated the Klan.
Should we do number 16? Come on.
Which one's that?
The Jordan Peterson bench press, is that good?
Oh, yeah, theology.
This was saved for you, Sam.
Oh, wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not, I've read the Bible. Well, the real Bible. I'm talking the first 5 books.
Oh.
I mean, the real one.
I was going to say half of it, but then I read the Bible and I realized the New Testament's kind of short. It's like kind of like rushed it.
Yeah, it's not.
And I'm not going to pretend like I went through all of Numbers and
Leviticus.
And did all the
beads.
It takes you got to do this, and there's got to be 4 cows. And
That stuff
the
slaps.
donkeys,
Yeah.
I love that.
No, I went through the more narrative stuff. This is an interesting theory.
I like the temple
that these-
specifications.
Exactly. This is an interesting theory that these guys have. This is an interesting
Anxiety.
Here is Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro discussing the concept of materialism and trying to both maintain the idea that of the horrible things they do for money.
Yeah.
And their religious righteousness also associated.
What's Ben's version of the prosperity gospel? I guess we're going to hear.
We're about to hear it.
And that can be a precursor virtue to
service to the highest possible good, which it should be a subset.
Pause it 1 second. The precursor virtue is like wealth accumulation.
Okay, so they're talking about wealth accumulation here. Yeah.
Of anyways, and that it can't just be tossed off casually as, all service to material prosperity or life more abundant is because of its materialism or its capitalism to be regarded with extreme suspicion. And it's also
Pause
not
it for 1 second.
money.
No, just go back. So in other words, what he's saying is that there is a notion of you could make a lot of money because of the good you could do. It shouldn't be just ignored. Like that could be, a lot of times people are like, I want to do good in the world. Well, maybe what I need to do is become a billionaire so that I can start spreading my goodness. I mean, that's just the theory.
That's why they're motivated. Sure.
That's what it's we're about.
I have some verses I'm just going to sprinkle in here throughout this conversation. Whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. This too is meaningless.
Who's that, Marx?
Isosceles 5:10.
Not Isosceles.
I don't know.
Ecclesiastes.
Jesus Christ. Well, not Jesus
Isosceles
Christ.
Too.
I was raised.
Isosceles.
I went to a Unitarian
Isosceles.
church.
It's one of my favorite part of the book,
which is barely
actually.
Christianity.
It's
So
me.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Prosperity or life more abundant is because of its materialism or its capitalism to be regarded with extreme suspicion. And it's also not money that's regarded. It's not money that's regarded as the primary sin in the Gospels either. It's love of money, and that means the prioritization of money over God. It doesn't mean the pursuit of life more abundant. This is also a place, I think, where the Jewish tradition has got things very right, because my sense is there's a laudable emphasis in the Jewish tradition on
Oh my God.
the goodness of a good life, right? The material, present, physical goodness of a good life. And that is different than that spiritualized reading of Christianity that makes everything in the material world like damned and corrupt by definition.
Can you pause it?
It's a very...
Guys, go for the cash. Go for the cash. Seriously. I mean, you'll do some good too. I mean, but go for the cash. Have a good life. Party.
I gotta say that was the most artful way. The most artful way I've heard someone call Jewish people money grubbing.
Yes, I think you're right.
No, they're not going to money grubbing. They just go for the cash.
And I like how Ben Shapiro's face while Peterson's setting up to do some theology is like, I don't want to talk to any of that. Actually, I'm going to do some basically surface level historicization. So let's go ahead, Brad.
Very weird take on Christianity.
Go back.
Is all
Just go back a little bit.
Thing in the material world like damned and corrupt by definition.
Yeah, it's a very weird take on Christianity. That Christianity is all about vows of poverty. I mean, given the development of the Western world as the richest civilization in the history of the world, and driven largely by religious Christians. I mean, if you look at the generation of American wealth, particularly in the late 19th century, for example, this is all religious men. I mean, John J. Rockefeller is attending church and dedicating churches. I mean, like this is this kind of bizarre notion.
Whoa.
Christianity.
Let's see. How should I work this with you guys? Listen. If a rich guy is religious, that means that he's really religious. Okay, is that good? I mean, are we clear on this?
Yeah, like Rockefeller was a nutcase, but there's a really good book called The Enchantments of Mammon by Eugene McCarraher, who is a religious believer himself, but talks about how 19th century capitalist religiosity is kind of like a bit of a cult that goes directly contrary to a lot that Jesus preached. I mean, just one thing, Matthew 19:24, the book of the Bible that I'm named after, actually. And I say again, I say unto you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of the needle than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God. And what I like about this is that there's always the same response from people who wanted to at least defend rich people or like these guys, which is that, well, if you look at it in context, he says it's really hard, but not impossible.
Not
it's
impossible.
I'll just say none of y'all are doing the work.
Here's the thing is that the whole Jesus thing, you'll recall, he went in and felt that the money changers and the monetization of the religion was inappropriate, and so he rudely pushed over the table and made all the money fall to the ground. And
Antifa.
He's Antifa-ing it. I mean, the whole thing was to for Jesus was to push back against the priests, the high priests, and I think they're the Pharisees, and this whole culture of like using the religion and its combination with money as some type of hierarchy. And I don't think the argument is that Rockefeller was not a religious person. I think it was that the religious ideas have been bastardized by the same people who those religious ideas were first promulgated against.
Yeah, it's probably the best case for the Bible that they include so many warnings against this sort of thing.
I mean, Jesus answered Matthew 19:21. If you want to be perfect, go sell your possessions and give to the poor. You will have treasure in heaven. Then come follow me.
I said if you wanted to be perfect, but honestly, how boring would it be if everybody was perfect?
I know, you gotta have a little
that
edge
would
to
be
you.
boring. Human faults are good.
Here we go.
Example, this is all religious men. I mean, John J. Rockefeller is attending church and dedicating churches. I mean, like this is this kind of bizarre notion that, Christianity is in direct conflict with capitalism or property rights or anything like that. It's obviously foolish and wrong. But that's why I say I think that Marxism is a bastard.
Just say it's foolish. Don't give any examples of what you're talking about. Just obvious. It's so obvious you don't even need to bring it up.
That's such a great example, though, of a flim-flam artist, because Jordan Peterson very clearly, and Jordan Peterson, I think, is a little bit exaggerates the extent to which he's bookish and learned, but is setting up Ben Shapiro to talk about the Old Testament. And Ben Shapiro instead talks some BS about John Rockefeller.
Right. Why are you bringing that example? Like, I mean, there have been, I gotta tell you, Ben, there have been religious hypocrites. Like, actually, there's many, many religious hypocrites you should know because you are one of them. Like, there are many, many people who profess religiosity because they like the control and they like the rigidity of the rules that religion provides, but are still greedy a-holes like Rockefeller. And the fact that he brings up that example is just bizarre. Because he can't go back to the text,
shallow.
even though this is like the whole premise of the conversation is that there's nothing in the religious doctrine that says that capitalism or greed is not a part of being godly in this way. So he has to go to the Rockefeller example from more modern history.
I wonder, there's one of two things that are going on. One is that Shapiro doesn't know what he's talking about when he comes to the Bible, which is actually, I think, a lot more plausible than one might give it, because he loves to assume that he is the Pope of the mantle being the Pope of the Jews.
Dennis Prager would have an answer for that, for instance.
Without a doubt. It would be, a
boring as hell.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that like getting mired in talking about religiousness is sort of cuts against sort of maybe his where he wants to go from a business perspective on the Daily Wire, particularly at this moment with Israel and Palestine and whatnot. But here we go.
Wrong. But that's why I say I think that Marxism is a bastardization in many ways of a misread of the Bible. And I think that so many of our problems, because let's be real about this, the Bible shaped the modern world. And so that means that even
Marxism is a bastardization of the Bible.
It's more like a sort of dialectical step along with like Adam Smith and maybe Heidegger and things like that. I don't like the Bible is kind of not really.
But both were written.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. I'm sorry. These people that mystify like the Anglo-Saxon world. They think that everything comes from these religious texts, and so like that's the only way that they perceive of philosophy or thought or enlightenment. They work backwards and say that it's always within this context.
Yeah, but again, it's just like he can't talk about the actual text, which is very funny to me, and he would instead just like talk about Rockefeller and Marx and basically this like surface level, Glenn Beck style talking points about this.
Matthew 6:19-20. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moths and vermin destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven where moths and vermin do not destroy and where thieves do not break and steal. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth. I feel like that's pretty clear. God, do you care to weigh in?
Stop sleeping on the moths, though they could be rough. I'm just telling you right now.
Like Rockefeller did the sign of the cross once.
Yep. Rockefeller gave to the church. So he dedicated a couple of churches. That's one of the few things that he did when it came to buildings, except for all the other buildings.
That's the get out of moth free card.
It's obviously foolish and wrong, but that's why I say I think that.
Hold on. Also, don't forget, Tony Soprano gave a lot to the church too. I mean, that's as long as we're God.
How much has Trump given to the church?
And in many ways of a misread of the Bible, and I think that so many of our problems, because let's be real about this, the Bible shaped the modern world, and so that means that even the perverse offshoots of the Bible shape the modern world, and so even the victimizer narratives that we see in the Bible. Many of them are deliberately or maybe not deliberately missing the point. I mean, when people look at the Cain versus Abel,
the Bible has shaped the modern world. I think that is definitely true. I mean, and you can look to like even Islam, obviously is the next sort of generation, if you will, after the New Testament is the next generation after the Old Testament. Of course, it also is discounting a really significant portion of the rest of the world that was not. It is shaped like, arguably the without a doubt, like the Western world in many respects, because kings and queens used it as their basis of their authority. And then fascists use it as their basis of authority many times. And there's actually some nice people who use it too. But the idea that shaped, I mean, it also probably shaped on some level like the existence of socialism, and that maybe socialism and was reacting to, democratic movements were reacting to the lack of democracy. In that sense. And a lot of that lack of democracy was a function of people saying the Bible has given me authority over you little peasants. But so in that sense, I think he's correct, although maybe a limited view of what constitutes the modern world.
That's what I was saying earlier, right? It's go on.
He made a mistake though, because they often like to pretend like Karl Marx invented this victimizer narrative thing, and Ben Shapiro admits that he actually actually precedes Capital Volume 1.
Abel narrative, and they say that what that story is actually about, for example, is Cain being he's vicious and he treats himself as a victim, and Abel's the victimizer, and therefore he kills Abel, and therefore he's punished. The reality is what that story is about is him recognizing the sin of that. I think that the Cain and Abel story, what's fascinating about the Cain and Abel story is everybody misses the end of the Cain and Abel story. The very end of that story is not just Cain going wandering in the wilderness. It's that he's the first person in the Bible who actually does repentance before God. He says, I've sinned. And then God marks him with the mark of Cain. And the mark of Cain is meant to protect him, right? The mark of Cain is not meant to mark him for murder. He says, I'm going to wander, I'm being an outcast, people are going to kill me. And God says, I'm going to give you this mark specifically to protect you because you've repented of the victimizer sin. America is currently...
That was a great segment.
Impressive evasion of the thing that Peterson was saying.
We should put a mark on all rich people. Thank you, Ben Shapiro.
It's sort of fascinating how much he did not want to talk about that.
It's a degradation. Dennis Prager, Jordan Peterson should talk to Dennis Prager if he wants to get into theology. All Ben Shapiro's got is, Karl Marx and Rockefeller made churches once.
Should we play this? Let's do, what is the Outlaw Reform Ministry one? Okay, yeah,
that's the one. That's the first, and then the woman is second, and then woman second.
Okay, yeah. All right. So we played a clip from the border convoy meeting outside of Austin, Texas. I don't know why they can't get to the border. I mean, just for God's sakes, you got trucks. Now, this is the YouTuber Outlaw Reform Ministries. He is at the trucker convoy in Texas. Do we know where he is? Oh, yeah, here. He's at Quamando, Texas. And he's driving to Eagle Pass.
God bless whoever watched 4 hours into this 6-hour live stream.
Exactly. And so this is one of the guys. Now, is he part of the leadership of the...
I think he's just he was invited, and he is accosted sort of by this couple while he's live streaming.
Oh, right now?
Yes. So
Okay.
as he's
Okay.
live streaming, he notices that a couple is coming towards him.
Yeah. And these are other folks en route to the thing. It's just something about so much of this is just like, did you ever see that movie? What was it? American, the one with, what's it? No. The one, shoot, I can't remember.
With Kevin Spacey?
Yes.
American Beauty?
American Beauty. And I just remember thinking at the time, like, boy, this is so sort of ham-fisted. The homophobe is actually, gay and projecting it out. And it wasn't until later, like when I started like doing this stuff and reading and seeing politicians and stuff like that, that like I realized like a lot of these folks, there is like the best defense is an offense.
There's another movie like that, The Believer, with Ryan Gosling, who it's one of his early movies. He's a Jewish man who's a neo-Nazi. It was based on a real guy. And, he hates himself so much that he overcompensates with becoming a neo-Nazi.
Exactly. Here we go. I don't know why that comes up here.
I hear a lot of evilness coming from this lady. Yeah. All I hear is a bunch of hate, and hate is not of God at all. Now she's approaching my car. Who is this lady? She's actually going to come over here.
This is part of a live stream.
Fucking pedophile.
And now
looks like a VP
she's
candidate.
doxing
Pedophiles
me.
don't belong anywhere around children. Never.
Well, put a bullet between my eyes then.
Yeah, you keep saying that, and nobody
Then
has
do it.
threatened you at all.
But you're here.
You are acting like a victim. You act like you're some kind of victim. You want people
Have
to
you
shoot
asked any
and stuff. How
questions?
stupid is that?
Have you asked any questions?
I don't need to. I've been watching your
Exactly.
dumbass stream all day.
Exactly.
You are a fucking pedophile. You are on the sex offender list, Texas registry. We looked the dates up. She was 8 years old. You are a lifetime member. A lifetime member on the sex offender list.
So you're one of those that believe everything you read.
Everything
The government-
You motherfucker, you're on the sex offender list.
The government
You are
doesn't make
convicted.
mistakes.
You were convicted. You're convicted.
The government doesn't make mistakes and put falsities on there.
I do have one question. I heard earlier you were trying to say, if you don't mind me asking a question.
If you're being legitimate,
Okay, I am. I think I'm going to be, because I heard it come out of your mouth.
okay,
Not that it matters.
okay.
You saying your 10-year-old little sister?
Let's see. I was 14. Are you going to let me answer?
Go right ahead.
I was 14. She was 10. But there is a whatever that word is, a circumstantial thing in here. My older sister started this whole thing. My dad started it with her. She started it with me. And it carried down. I'm not saying this to just.
This is too disturbing. It's too disturbing. Oh my God.
Yeah, I did not expect that to go there.
No, that is too disturbing.
I don't need to hear the details of this person's sexual assault of a child.
I guess the bottom line is, play the clip of the woman next. It's all like, I honestly have mixed feelings between like, these people are lunatics, and I feel bad for them. But then also, like,
they've been propagandized to political action.
They've been propagandized, but they're also the way that they're sort of like dealing with their own sort of like various traumas.
Yep.
Is to then victimize immigrants who, and it's just here's this. Is this the same woman? Yeah, this is the woman sort of like reacting after the, wait, okay, this is her outside of his car. Yeah. Right. So this is her talking about that guy that we just saw inside that car.
God tells us in the Bible that we are to be of a discerning spirits. And if you believe in the Bible, and a lot of people believe these are the end times, it tells you in the end times there will be a lot of prophets and preachers who are misleading, evil spirits. Okay? So if you want to go by the Bible, God tells you to be discerning and to discern the spirit so that you will not be deceived. You understand? So I'm talking to the Christians now. Okay, I'm going to preach to the Christians. Do not be deceived. Stop thinking that everybody who waves a flag and shouts freedom is your friend and a good person, because we have people like this trying to join up in the movements. I found this out the hard way.
All right.
Donald Trump is a sex abuser.
That's the thing. It's like so close to understanding that everything that you're doing, never mind about that guy, but everything you're doing is a function of what you're talking about.
There's so many. I mean, like, I know it sound. I don't mean it to be condescending that like this movement plays on people with like mental issues, but that really is like what when we talked about that guy that decapitated his father and was saying all those right-wing talking points. There are people out there who are unstable, and when you speak about demons and when you speak about pedophiles and everyone's coming for you, like the people that are content creators on this platform or those on those topics and that are like putting that stuff out there know there's a risk of stochastic terrorism or whatever, or violence because of that, but they do it anyway, and it's scary. It's scary.
Well, they also know, like when Tim Pool mentions Satanism or something like that, they know that like people that are damaged like this, and frankly, arrested, haven't developed in a way that leads them to view the world in anything other than like fantastical notion. They are easy audience, and you can keep like freaking them out to the point where you rile them up, and
and they're drawn to notions of like good and evil and secret demons and pedophiles and holy wars, and that's a pretty good example of it.
Really disturbing.
I mean, there was all the issues with the people that made that documentary, the
Sound of Freedom, or the movie, yeah.
All right, let's just do these. Let's just do 9 and 10, and then we'll get out of here. This is important because, and you know, in many respects, these type of attacks that we see on Tlaib, Rashida Tlaib, seeing them on Cori Bush on some extent, and really sort of like almost like the OG model for this were the attacks on Ilhan Omar when she first came into Congress by Democrats. Like, people forget this, but when Nancy Pelosi became Speaker of the House in 2018, they had this big bill, H.R. 1, which was a voting rights bill and sort of like had some stuff like that ultimately became Build Back Better. I mean, it was a very all-encompassing bill, and this was going to be their big legislative crowning achievement. This was what they were going to run on. And they're in the build-up to roll this out, Nancy Pelosi, spurred on by, you know, folks like Gottheimer and others, started launching attacks on Ilhan Omar for being an anti-Semite and stepping. And it went on and on until eventually the Democrats realized, like, oh, wait a second. Folks like Marjorie Taylor Greene are actually like full on lunatics. Maybe we should stop doing this. And meanwhile, they stepped all over their big HR 1. And they were complaining months later, how come we got no media attention? Because you created this whole story about Ilhan Omar. Now,
for criticizing AIPAC.
Fortunately, to some extent, to some extent, we've moved past that because of the nature of like the demographics, and we don't have Pelosi's leadership, and we've moved past some of that, where Democrats realize like you don't participate in these type of pile-ons, but it has still left them vulnerable to this because of what was created in the sort of like right-wing sort of like neural pathways. Here is Marjorie Taylor Greene, who you'll remember the first time she was in Congress, she was drunk.
Allegedly. Well, I say that. I've joked about that. We don't know.
She
seemed drunk. Yes.
And was pushing up like the mail slot in AOC's office.
With a bunch of her buddies.
Are you in there? I mean, come on.
We know she loves to party.
Here she is now. Coming out with a completely baseless smear on Ilhan Omar.
Today I introduced a censure resolution against Ilhan Omar. And the reason why I did that, and I'll just say this, censure is not going far enough. If it were up to me, we would expel Ilhan Omar and deport her out of the United States. Her comments are outrageous. She's acting as a foreign agent within our very government.
Pause it.
She said.
All right. Let's see how much. There was a story in the Lever today that AIPAC is about to spend $90 million. $90 million. Do we have, at some point, Bradley, could you look up how many members of Congress take money from AIPAC?
Yeah.
Because if you want to
foreign
accuse
influence,
anyone of being an agent for a foreign government, there was a guy that just stood down on the floor, a representative from a Republican representative, in an Israeli IDF uniform, okay? But that doesn't count because it's Israel, and because right-wingers love Israel because they want the Jews to go back there and die and get burned in hellfire so Jesus comes back, and also because like neocons love Israel because of the way that we can use our support of Israel as an opportunity to continue to kill more Arabs in the Middle East. Like that is the foreign influence that we're talking about here. But because she wears a hijab and because she was a refugee from another country, she's the foreign agent.
And we Bowman's primary challenger, his biggest donor is AIPAC. We should say that like Summer Lee's challenger is using the same technique that was used against Nina Turner, calling for Republicans to cross over and vote in the Democratic primary to get Summer Lee out, who was one of the few challengers to withstand the AIPAC tsunami in the last election cycle. But all right, continue.
The U.S. government will only do what Somalians in the U.S. tell them to do. They will do what we want and nothing else. They must follow our orders, and that is how we will safeguard the interest of Somalia. She also said,
Twitter sucks. I mean, do we even need, like, it's just racism.
Okay. And so it turns out that oddly, turns out she in fact did not say that. Here is Caitlin Collins on CNN.
Ambassador from that breakaway region posted a version of her comments online. The translation on the clip claimed that she said this: the U.S. government will only do what Somalians in the U.S. tell them to do. They will do what we want and nothing else. They must follow our orders, and that is how we will safeguard the interest of Somalia. Now, CNN translated her speech. Here's what she actually said. Quote, the United States government would do what we tell them to do. We need to have confidence as Somali people. We live in this country. This is the country that we pay taxes in. This is the country where a girl was born from you all who is sitting in Congress. Ambassador from...
Seems like a very different message, isn't it?
I'm shocked.
I mean, even the first message, like, how could you...
I don't even understand. That's why we didn't talk about this, because I couldn't even understand what they were saying she was doing.
They're claiming that Somalia dictates the terms to America.
Look at the news, guys. That's not really the concern right now.
Yeah. To answer, thank you, Bradley, for sending this. My question from earlier: the Israel lobby gave Congress $58 million last cycle, and only 33 members did not receive donations. So, like, look, I mean, I don't even like the framing of calling members of Congress who receive money from the Israel lobby foreign agents. Like, that's not correct. Although many of them act very much in Israel's interest after they get a bunch of money.
Yep.
But if we're going to talk about foreign agents and who's serving a foreign government, it's pretty clear what how that's panning out right in front of our eyes right now.
All right. That concludes our call-in portion of the program. We're going to read some IMs and get out of here. Lux, gentle reminder that the insistence on pointing at repressed queer feelings being responsible for the most ardently queer-phobic people it's making us queer folks the center and responsibility of our own persecution. I mean, I don't know that we said it's the most ardently queer-phobic people, but it certainly has been the case that over the years, at least in terms of politicians, not only is this the most easy liberal instinct to point at and ineffective at changing anything, it's just hypocrisy, pointing with no follow-through. It does cultural harm. I think you made a huge mistake with that segment, particularly beginning it with those connotations, because it ended up was reinforcing queer people as a product of harm and trauma and our connection to pedophilia. It wouldn't hurt to issue a correction for that segment. I know none of you think this is intentional harm. Thanks for all you do. I honestly, I don't know exactly what the correction would be. We were talking about the religiosity and that there are stances that people take because of their self-hate. I mean, Emma did it in the context of this, of that Ryan Gosling character. It happens. Yeah. It's a dynamic. I mean, I have a list from that book that I did of all the congressional people, like Ed Schrock, and comes to mind, some guy from Virginia, and the senator from Minnesota.
Michelle Bachmann's husband is somebody who I remember. I don't know, not confirmed, but there have been speculations. Like, this is a real thing. I'm sorry. There are still folks who are religious who are closeted and they overcompensate by being as aggressively anti-gay or anti-trans as possible. And I mean, that's a real dynamic.
If we made it seem like this was the
driving force,
then I would issue a correction for that. That was not the intention of that segment. Hi, crew. The stream sounds robotic. Might be connection related, says Omega.
We have been shuttered in the last 5 minutes, so maybe we want to. I'm not sure what's going on.
Okay. All right. 5 more IMs and then we're out of here. Core brand proposition. I'm appalled at how poorly the press questions Kirby. He's so condescending and a shameless liar. I can't hardly stomach watching him. Chicago Steve. I think they meant National Socialist, as in Hitler in Germany. I don't know. It didn't sound like that. Fidel Cashflow. I don't agree with him on a lot of things, but I think as leftists, we need to come out and say we stand with Greg Abbott. Weasel Wrangler. Strange that these sex offender lists keep listing libertarians. Oh God, it got so much worse. They need to help and badly in having the trauma they've experienced and the trauma they cause politically weaponized selfishness. You're being too kind. There's a reason that video of Ilhan was released with no subtitles and just attacks. Yeah, that's probably true. Marblehead Marxist. Libertarian alert. Libertarian alert. Now that I have your attention, Sam, I think I found a new opponent. Actor Mark Pellegrino. He's a small fish, but he's a member of the hilarious named American Capitalist Party and published videos like What Gives Israel the Right? And Is Immigration a Right? And is guested on Pool and Rubin. He's got the stupidity of a libertarian and the confidence of an actor. He's perfect. I've never heard of him. All right, 2 more. Sergeant Flux. just thinking about red cities that are passing anti-homeless laws and that would criminalize giving donations to the homeless. If framed correctly, it would be in violation of the First Amendment to criminalize tzedakah. I'm in a blue city, but I'm sure I would have a strong case to present to the court if I haven't made it clear now I'm annoyingly Jewish. Oh, tzedakah is basically a Jewish commandment to give charity. That's interesting. I wonder if you could push that. And people tried to do that with abortion as well, actually. Abortion bans. Barb MR fan. I wouldn't want a faith that couldn't face the facts. Novelist Pat Barker. And the final IM of the week. Wow, who should we go with here? New Jersey mailman. Didn't the Egyptian religion have the son of Ra get crucified and resurrected? Did the Christians just steal ideas from other religions? It's like no one's original. All of the stuff was stolen from everybody, guy.
Yeah.
Bradley, Matt, Emma, great job this week. John Aarons, Dorsey Shaw, Chris and Maria, and my sister Julie, and Isaac. Great job this week, everybody. See you on Monday.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light's shining bright. I get somewhere the choice was made, for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive between the 101 and the 5. Do you know how far the detour takes you? Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light's shining bright. The months drifted into years while I shifted in and out